And we are live. Everyone, thanks for holding tight. Having some internet issues over here. And no, it's not because I don't have an Ethernet cable. I was hardwired. The internet in the whole area, in my area, is down right now. And so I'm doing this on my phone. Hopefully this works all right. But we were determined to get this live off for you guys tonight. And so we're making it work by any means necessary. So we got the old card shop with us. Got a lot of awesome topics. I'm going to let him give an intro and give an idea of who he is, what he does, and kind of what he's doing in Pokemon these days.
What's going on, everyone? My name is Josh. I'm the Old Card Shop online. I do mostly online selling, retail, a lot of modern, a lot of graded cards, a lot of flipping going on here at the Old Card Shop these days. But I used to be a full-time streamer. I guess you could say I'm sort of like a now retired streamer. I'm still very much so involved with Pokemon, but I don't do live pack breaks anymore. And it gives me a lot of free time, so I love to do these lives. So I really appreciate you having me on. I've been enjoying your channel lately. You've been having a lot of great, you're doing a little resurgence in your comeback to YouTube. I see you're doing more daily videos, weekly videos. I like that. You're doing more lives. I'm enjoying all the content. So yeah, I just appreciate you having me on. Yeah, I'll shout out my new eBay, though. Now that I don't sell on Whatnot, I should at least shout out where I sell. I sell on my eBay account. It is named Selling Bags. That is my official eBay account. It has my official logo, but it is the old card shop account. Long story short, had to get deactivated, and I just started a new one. So the new name is sort of a little fun name, a kind of tongue-in-cheek name there. But go follow me at Selling Bags on eBay if you want to go see what I'm doing over there and follow along with what I'm actually selling and buying and things. But yeah, thanks again for having me.
Yeah, and I do have Josh's links to his YouTube and his Instagram. I'm happy you told me that because I tried to put your eBay link and realized it wasn't working, so I left it out. So I'll make sure to add that whenever my computer starts working again. I'll get that link on the video as well for everyone. And then also, I do have to give a quick shout out. If anyone is wanting to take part in the box break happening on the channel, it's going to be June 11th. We got Unified Minds. We got Unbroken Bonds. We even got some Paldea Evolved if you want to get into that. Just go to nostalgianomics.com. You can buy them right on there. Pay any way you want, credit card, Apple Pay, PayPal, pretty much anything's accepted. And then you can also leave in the notes if you want like your channel shouted out, your eBay, your Instagram, your name, whatever you want to do, you can leave that and we'll give it a shout out. And they are going to be sealed boxes. So we're not doing loose packs or blisters. They are going to be sealed boxes. So you'll have more of that guaranteed as much as Pokemon pull rates are guaranteed. More of guaranteed hit rates in there. So there will be people going home with something good, hopefully. And yeah, so you can go do that. Other than that, so Josh, let's expand more on that, the fact that you're not a full-time streamer anymore. So if anyone doesn't know, Josh was full-time Whatnot streamer, one of the evil Whatnot guys, right? And I mean, that was the majority. You can tell them yourself in a second, but I mean, from what I know, that was the majority of your business. And now you've kind of pivoted and you're still full-time Pokemon even after giving that up. And so I really want to kind of hear of what that process was like of switching over to not using Whatnot at all and how things have been going, since then.
Yeah, no, and I'm happy to talk about it too, because I think I made one YouTube video and I've talked about it on my podcast, the Cardboard Hands, a couple of times, but I haven't really gone that much into it. And I thought I was going to be doing a lot more YouTube video making and content creation when I stopped doing my regular streaming on Whatnot, but that just didn't turn out to be a reality. So I am happy to talk a little bit more about it here, a little more candidly. But yeah, it goes back to a little bit about how I got started in the Pokemon hobby back in 2019, 2020, when I started really going more full time in this whole endeavor. I was working in hospitality for many years. I worked at a winery selling. I live in the Napa Valley. For anyone who doesn't know, I'm very open about that. California, West Coast, Napa Valley. I sold wine for many years, and I was in hospitality. The pandemic sort of happened. I was already collecting Pokemon at the time because of like Hidden Fates and Sun and Moon and the tag team era and just Pokemon Go in general. Like my fiance and I, a lot of our relationship was based in the beginning of the relationship on like us playing Pokemon Go together. So like Pokemon's a big part of my life and has been even before I was really into the cards. But I started like selling and buying and like just kind of hunting for the cards when Hidden Fates came out. That's what really got me in it. I learned that I could sell the cards that I was pulling from Hidden Fates to then buy more Pokemon cards, more Hidden Fates to try to go more for the Charizard and et cetera, et cetera. And so that's what I was doing for a lot, just on the side with my hospitality gig, just with my little bit of extra money I had. If I had a good week, I would go and buy some Pokemon cards, and that was sort of the fun that I had with it. Then, of course, the pandemic happened. Everyone was at home. Hospitality jobs all sort of got, you know, the rug taken out from under them. And so I had a lot of extra time, and I just decided to go and keep doing what I loved, Pokemon, what I was already doing at the time, and just sort of spend the extra time I had doing it more. And so I started, instead of buying all my stuff from like Walmart and Target, which I got really tired of going and competing with the other scalpers, I very quickly learned what I had to do to buy wholesale. And so this was right around the time when like Darkness Ablaze was coming out. That was my first set that I was able to buy wholesale. I looked up what you needed to do to get like a resale license and a business license online. And I sort of did what I needed to reach out to a local distributor, someone in California. They ended up picking up the call. This is like Darkness Ablaze, early 2020. Hype was there, but it wasn't quite there at the same way that it is now. And they said, sure, you want to buy a case or something from us, no problem. And I started buying wholesale through distribution just because it was something that I always did, because my family grew up like buying at Costco, or when you knew you're going to get something, you bought it in bulk. And so that was sort of my natural go-to tendency. And so I didn't need a whole case of Darkness Ablaze. And so I had to find someone to sell it to. And I knew people online in the Pokemon community who were opening this stuff on Facebook, and they needed a line on packs. And so like I just used my extra distribution to like sell the extra packs to sort of fund the beginning of my hobby. And so I did that for maybe from Darkness Ablaze until what Champion's Path was like the next big release. Like Vivid Voltage and Champion's Path were like both really big things at that time. And like I was just getting started that time, like still flipping, still just in the pandemic, sort of in my house doing nothing. And I very quickly realized that I could buy more, and I bought as much as I could. And my distributor, of course, immediately said, hold up, we'll give you 2 cases instead of 1 case, but that's it. So I would sell my extra case, realize I could make a ton off of it if I just sold the extra that I didn't want. And I kept doing that and flipping more and more until to the point where, when it came time to go back to my normal 9-to-5, like hospitality job, when, the pandemic was over a year later or whatever it was, it just didn't make sense for me to like go back to my $20 something an hour job when I was doing a lot better than that, just selling, flipping on the side. So then of course, it continued. Instead of, you can only buy so many boxes to flip, when you're allocated to like a case or 2 cases or 3 cases with every set, and you only have 1 distributor, which is where I was at, and no one else was picking up the phone at that point. And so I had to start figuring out ways to sell my product and make money, make my margins, if I wanted to continue doing this and didn't want to keep going back to like slang and wine, which to be honest, I don't care about. Like, it's fine. I'm sure it's someone's dream job, but it's not mine.
And enter Whatnot.
Yeah, and so I started Whatnot was almost there. I at that point I was on Instagram and Facebook, and the people that I was selling packs to rip, they were getting harder and harder to find the packs, and I hate to say it, I eventually had to cut out the middleman, and stop selling directly to them and start ripping the packs directly myself and make, there's only so many people that could scalp a pack of Vivid Voltage up to $10, you know what I mean? And so I hate to say it, but I was a part of that just like everyone else was a part of that at the time. I was selling for what was market price, and market price was like $8 to $10. And it's just like, would I rather sell to another streamer to sell it for them to sell it for $8 to someone else so then they can make the extra $4 or whatever? Or do I just want to make it myself? So I started ripping packs on Instagram, on Facebook, just to whatever the normal crowd that I was selling to typically. It was slow going, but it was fun, and it was a way for me to kind of interact with the community a little bit more. I was still selling just, to some of my regular people, but it very quickly became profitable to the point where I was like, okay, well, this makes sense. So I went full-time pack breaker, and then Whatnot came out right at that time. And I don't know what happened first, whether like I decided to go full-on pack breaker or Whatnot coming out, but it definitely was like similar timing, because I remember literally the week that they contacted me, because I was one of the first like 10 Pokemon people on Whatnot ripping Pokemon packs. And so they were more of a pop sneaker, like kind of like a collectibles, but not exactly as big into Pokemon or sports cards. They wanted to get into Pokemon and sports cards, but it wasn't their biggest thing. They were more into sports and Pokemon. So they were reaching out to certain small streamers who they wanted, anyone who they thought could come onto the platform and maybe give a couple, a good look to the platform. And so Grant, one of the owners of Whatnot, reached out to me, and like I remember vividly talking to him on the phone while he's in LA traffic, like going to the headquarters, and like he was giving me the rundown of what they were wanting to do with the company and like what their idea was. And it was really cool. Like it seemed like he really cared about like growing collectibles, and like he was a collector himself. He liked Pokemon, and like it seemed like a really good platform. And their fees were like 10%, which was like a couple percent less than like the competitors. And I had seen a couple of the other streamers who are already on there. There was one, like, I think Super Duper Danny was one of their first ones that they had, or like someone like early like that was. And I'd seen some early person on there, and it seemed like it was a good gig. And so I decided to go, sure, what the heck, why not? Try Whatnot out. I was one of the first people on their Pokemon side, and it very much so felt like the Wild Wild West. Like it was like ripping packs. Sometimes you would get like $1 or $2 because you're running auctions, and other times you get like $10 for like a $3 or $4 pack. So it was very much so like random, and it felt like it was like fun and exciting and the new thing, but there wasn't very many people like on the app. So I got in very early. I started ripping packs, and that's just really what I did.
Well, that brings us to our first question from B. I know he was trolling with this, but what's the EV on box breaks? Just asking for a friend who is an investor. My answer to that is they are 100% return on fun and excitement and joy. That's what the return is.
Yes, and I will say that I personally am never one to participate or buy into box breaks. So the irony of me being a box breaker and being like someone who breaks packs and charges people to do that is not lost on the old card shop. It's not lost on me. That irony is not lost on me. It's sort of a mentality. It's the type of person who wants to just like open up their phone, and sort of the thing about Whatnot is it's a very accessible app. You just open up your phone from no matter where you are. Maybe you're on your lunch break at work. Maybe you're at a crappy wedding. Maybe you're in the middle of your class. You're studying algebra, and you should be paying attention to your teacher, but you're on your phone instead. Like no matter what you're doing, you can just pick it up, and you're like going into a stream where someone's opening Pokemon cards or Magic cards or sneakers or pops, whatever you're into. So like I understand the appeal of just like having it in your pocket and opening it up and wanting to spend like $5, even though it's like a $3, $4 pack. You'll spend an extra $1 or $2 just because you're bored and you want to see it live right then. Like you just don't care about that extra $1. So I get the novelty of it. And so it made sense to me. Like the whole thing makes a lot of sense to me. But
well, okay, so yeah, I know you say you would never take part in a pack break, but like, I mean, if you're like Collecticon or you're out, I mean, do you ever like open packs where you pay to like open a pack like just for the gamble of it, like for yourself at all, or you don't even do that?
So like I personally have been involved with cards since I was like 8 years old. So like I'm not this is not my first rodeo, so to speak. So like when I was I think 10 or 11 years old, by the time I was a few years into the hobby after collecting Pokemon cards, I saved up my allowance and purchased my first booster box. And that was because like I would have these Inquest or these Scry magazines or these these price guide magazines that after I'd have my Pokemon cards, I'd be pricing them out so that I knew what to trade the other kids on because we didn't have the internet back then. And at the end of these magazines, you'd see like a whole booster box for $99. And I'd be like, wait a second, I'd spend $20 getting like 3 booster packs with my allowance 1 week, or I could save that up or pool together that money with my friends. We could get 36 packs and we could have way more fun and more so like I always have been a buy a booster box instead of just buying a pack one at a time sort of guy, because I've been in the hobby for so long. So like to answer your question, no, it just doesn't it does not appeal to me to buy things one pack at a time ever in any situation, because like maybe when I was like 7 years old or 8 years old, because I didn't know better, then sure. But anyway, I understand.
I mean, I think it's kind of like, going out for a night at the casino and playing roulette, right? And throwing on a number or something. Because like with pack breaks, like kind of what I know B Purple Poker. He's trolling me a little bit. We're cool with each other, but I mean. The reality of it is there are going to be people in the box break that get exponential returns on their cards. I mean, a lot of those raw cards and Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds, like they're worth a lot of money. Well, they are. I mean, there's probably
I'm not disputing that, but
yeah.
It's more like I would dispute the fact that it's like it's only worth it for that one person, whereas everyone else is losing. And I guess I don't necessarily So that's not my I mean, that's not even like the issue with box breaks. So anyway, that's a whole nother thing, you know what I mean? But I think I think the opening packs is essentially gambling. And I do think that there's a certain amount of that in the hobby is sort of like celebrated with like packs, and that's fine and everything. And so like to kind of get back to like the story where we're going though, because it did have a point. My whole big and it goes to the gambling thing. I don't break on Whatnot anymore, because while I do feel like I understand the concept and I think it's a really great concept, and I love the idea of like having your phone in your pocket and be able to open it up at any time and just get what you love and get it from a safe spot or whatever. At this point in time, it doesn't feel that way anymore. It feels like it's really leaned into that gambling side way more than it maybe should have. And this is by no means like an actual critique of the app. This is just my own personal opinions and like what I've seen on it, because they have terms of service and they're going to say that they don't support like duck races and gambling and like bounties and all these extra layers of added like layers of risk that are a predatory, toxic sort of risk that pretty much all streamers employ these days just to be competitive. I'm sort of against that element, because like I just said, I already feel like pack breaking has a layer of gambling associated with it that I'm already sort of against. Like, and I'm not one of these guys who's saying you should never rip packs. I'm just saying, like, when I do it personally, I buy a booster box at a price that I feel comfortable doing, and I will usually rip it myself. Now, if you're the type of person that really likes to see other people rip your stuff, and it's more fun because you're in that environment, there's more people watching, like, personally, if you're just ripping a booster box like with your friends or by yourself in your house, like, where's the fun in that? Like, I don't think I would do that per se. Like, I'm very fortunate in that my fiance likes Pokemon, so I just gotta be like, hey honey, come on, can we rip this booster box? And she might be like, can we like do it later? But I'm like, no, come on, like, it's really fun. Like, can we like, there's a really good card. It'll be really good if we hit it. And then she'll be like, all right, fine. I can really twist someone's arm to open with me. Not everyone has that.
Right.
So, like, opening it, like, I get it, the box break thing. It's a little different for if you're like alone in the hobby, you know what I mean?
So I think we got a pretty good sense of that. So with that being said, the direction everything's going right now, do you think eventually kind of the whole title of this video, eventually with all these box breaks on Whatnot and TikTok and Instagram and Twitch and now YouTube, do you think eventually that the hype is going to eventually just get drawn down? It's going to get worn out, and eventually it is going to lead to a downturn within the next 1-2+ years of Pokemon, because it kind of just gets, you know, you just get like overload on your senses, right? There's just too much of it. It's been done a million times. Everyone's doing it. Everyone, you know, is gambled as much as they wanted to, had all their fun. I mean, do you think we have a downturn coming, or do you think it's just going to make the hobby stronger than ever as the time goes on?
So say what I will about like the extra layers of gambling that it adds to the hobby, all these extra box breaks and all this extra excitement that gets added, and all these breaking YouTube channels, the whatnots, the drips, the rare candies, and all that stuff is good for the hobby. I overall think that the more product that gets open, the more that gets broken, the more that gets put in front of people's faces, the more healthy it is for the hobby, because it's what it's meant to be done. Like I think it's my friend Dan, Catch 'em All Collectibles, who always says sealed is meant to be opened, and I'm a sealed collector. Like, I personally get enjoyment collecting sealed things of sets that I love. And some people just like find that hard to believe. I find myself convincing people of that so often that, hey, there is just as many people who like the actual sealed box as much as they like the cards. Okay. And some people, they don't get it. Can I tell you my logic behind it and see if it lines up with your logic behind it?
Go ahead.
Okay, so like, this is something that on my channel, this Urza Saga Magic the Gathering booster box up there, that's an expensive Magic the Gathering vintage booster box. It's the crown jewel of my actual collection piece. I have one here and another in another location because I love the set so much that I have two of them. I personally will never open that set, and I have no desire to open that box, because not only is it very expensive and it's a very large set, and most likely the card that I want out of it isn't going to be hit by me opening one booster box. I've opened that box before. You have to open 3 or 4 boxes to hit like the Gaia's Cradle, which is what I want out of that box. And if I never open that box, there's a chance that there are 36 Gaia's Cradles in that box. Every pack has one potentially, and that's the card that I want. But if I open that box and I don't get one, then there's potentially 0 of that card in the box that I own. So like, in my head, I know every card in that set. I know what I want out of the set. I know what I don't want out of the set. Having that sealed in my collection means that I own potentially Pandora's box of every card that I can open out of the set until I actually open the box. Then when I open the box and it's all G.I. Joe cards in it, well, then I don't own any of them. I only own G.I. Joe cards, and the mystery is all gone. So like, the enjoyment for me, I would either have to have every single card, a play set of every single card in the set in order for me to really enjoy the set, or I could have one single box, and to me, it's the same as having every card in the set, a play set of it. And it's like, I can look at that box, and I'm like, huh, I like that. I'm not going to open it, but I know what's in it. And so like, would I do it with a set I didn't know what was in, I had no connection to? Would I hold it and care? No, probably not. Would I spend a lot of money on it? No. I would only do that with something I have nostalgia towards, something I really, truly cared about. So for me personally, that's why I'm a sealed collector with like high-end. I have a EX Power Keepers booster box here. This Power Keepers booster box, if I ever open it, there's probably not a gold star in it. But if I don't open it, I have 3 potential gold stars, or 1 gold star in the box, and so like, or all G.I. Joe cards. So it is what it is. So that's my logic behind sealed collecting and how I gain enjoyment out of it. I don't know if there's any similarity for you, but I'm a weirdo. So.
Well, no, I mean, I think I've tried to like combat the like a lot of the points that people make about single cards, like with on other people's streams before. But it's like, you know, one of the arguments people make is that, you know, sealed product takes up so much more room. And it's like, if you really think about it, one box takes up a very small amount of space compared to, what are you going to do? Put all the singles in a binder? Okay, then it doesn't take up much space, but then you can't see them. So what do you have to do? You have to display your PSA copies or your singles in top loaders. That takes up an enormous amount of space. You could probably only display like one set per whole shelf. Whereas I could have an entire shelf full of ETBs or booster boxes, have an amazing display of every set in the whole era as opposed to one set. So I think, you know, collecting wise, makes sense for sealed product. Obviously, I'm a sealed guy. I think the value of sealed goes up very close to being guaranteed over time, as close as you can get. And singles are great, right? You know, you can collect the art you want. You know, a lot of times when we see the spikes, the sealed product kind of it spikes with when cards spike, kind of like team up. But if you hit the big hitters, they will spike higher. It's kind of like owning a single stock over a mutual fund. You will get bigger spikes. You will hit more home runs going with singles, especially if you're grading them. But I just think with sealed product, it's easy to display. Like you said, you can collect the whole set in one box. You don't have to go searching around for 100, 200, 300 cards. And takes, you know, I just think it's in my mind, a better all collection piece. But that's why Pokemon's great, because there's something for everybody.
And it's also, to be fair, something that you don't have to think as much about on the front end. It's like, you have to know the best hit in the set. Scarlet and Violet is a great example. Okay. Scarlet and Violet, I think the market has it wrong with what's going to be the hit in Scarlet and Violet. Right now, everyone's chasing the Merriam and all the like trainers and everything. Personally, over time, I personally think the Gardevoir EX and that line, and also maybe some of the trainer galleries and other alternate arts, those maybe have a higher chance of being the chases of the box rather than the alternate art trainers. I just think right now the alternate art trainers are hot. That's what's kind of the new big thing. But that doesn't, so you don't have to have any opinion about one way or the other. If you're collecting singles or investing in like a single, you do have to really have an opinion on that. You have to know whether you think the Miriam's the hit, whether you think the Miraidon's the hit, whether you think the gold, whatever, you know, the trainer is the hit, whether you think that the Gardevoir's the hit. You have to know, because you're going to invest in 20 copies, 30 copies, 40 copies. You're going to sit them in your binder. You're going to grade them, do whatever you're going to do with speculating if you like that single card, and you're going to hope for the best. Whereas with the sealed collector, you don't have to know if it's the Gardevoir, the Miriam, the Iron Treads, the Slowpoke. You don't have to know any of that. You just buy the box, throw it in the closet, and regardless of what happens, the market will decide. You have the boxes. So having a sealed collection is a little bit more of a no-brainer move. Not that it's like a no-brainer move in that it's an easy guaranteed stocks, but like, or stonks, but it's more like it's a no-brainer move in that it's like you don't have to think as much about it because you're just buying the mutual fund sort of thing, like the spread rather than the single thing, you know? So I'm the prime example of like, I speculated on a single when Vivid Voltage came out. When those amazing rares just came out, they were all going for like, I don't know, between $15 to $30 a pop. The amazing rares, you know, Celebi, Jirachi, Rayquaza. I speculated on the Celebi card when Vivid Voltage came out, as well as sealed boxes. I did both. I bought a bunch of boxes for my distributor, like I said, but I also, after opening a bunch of it, I saw how hard it was for me to hit the Celebi out of like a ton of booster boxes. I hit just very few Celebis. I went on TCG Player and cleaned them out, like $15 a card, like every single copy. I got probably 30 or 40 of them, it had to have been. And I felt like an idiot, obviously, as that card just rode down. And that's what, you know, I could have been right. It could have been like, it could have been a different card that I speculated on that did a different trajectory and went way up, you know, but I chose one that went down. So yeah, it's a lesson you learn, you know, and everyone should know never to speculate on cards when a set first comes out. You know, that's not necessarily the smartest thing, but you know, you live and you learn. And even those of us who do this professionally, we make those mistakes, and there's no shame in that. You know, at least I have no shame in that. It's a story I like to tell all the time.
We're going to expand on that right in a second, but I do want to kind of take a second. I'm making the mistake of really keeping up with the chat, and I'm definitely taking some heat in the chat, so I want to address it. Okay, so guys, if you don't like box breaks, I get it. Okay, I literally told the story, but I've had multiple people asking me to do them. And so what I did was I made a community post, and I made the question, hey, would you like to see box breaks on the channel? Would you participate? And there were about 50 or 60 responses. Majority of them were positive, excited about it, wanted to do it. I thought it'd be a great thing to do with the community on the channel. Okay. That's basically what I mean. I reached out to you. I mean, you could tell. I mean, I reached out to you, asking about how how it works, how to make it fair. Didn't want to do any weird like bounties or crazy gambling or any like weird stuff. Reached out to a couple other people. I tried to source the product the best deals I could. I'm trying to make the packs as reasonable as possible. Still being able to pay for shipping and everything like that. And look, if you don't like it, just don't show up. Be happy for others. Don't be involved in it, but look, I get there's a lot of people out there that don't like it. I'm not trying to be some like hype beast, gamblers channel where you can come to, but hey, pack breaks are fun. I mean, I'll be honest, like I guess I'm more of a gambler. Like if I'm out somewhere and they're selling like packs, and sometimes I'll buy one. I mean, I'm definitely no stranger to going out with friends at the casino and playing some some games there. Like everyone's free to spend their money the way they want. I really don't know how to, but I just want to throw that out there. So, I mean, you guys can stop beating me up so dang bad tonight.
Well, Alex, I think what might have a little bit to do with it is I think that your community really cares about your channel and what it represents. And I don't think they want to see it turn into like, no offense to the guy, but like what happened with PokeRev is just like all breaks all the time, start charging $1 million and using his name. And like, that's not what I think when you called me and you're like, hey dude, I'm thinking about doing some box breaks. That wasn't the idea I was getting from it. You specifically were like, hey, I want to know like what works, what doesn't work. Like, what do you think is like a good idea? And I went into this long tirade about specifically what I didn't think you should. I say, don't ever do this, don't ever do that. And like, I went in this whole anti like gambling and whatnot thing, which wasn't even what you asked, which, so I think where it comes from is your community really cares about your message, which has traditionally been like sealed collecting, and like box breaks are obviously like the exact opposite of sealed collecting. But that being said, I think people also, those same people who maybe are criticizing, can also understand that, well, it's not for them. There's a lot of people who do enjoy the hobby that way. And I mean, your breaks, like looking at your prices, it's like $20, which is like basically the charging the price of the box plus like shipping, and like, it's not a big deal.
Yeah. And another thing is with the, and as far as the channel memberships go,
and you're not doing it every day either, right? It's not like yeah, I don't think it doesn't seem like you're changing. It's just like you're adding like a once in a while thing. So yeah.
Yeah, so I wanted to add that. So it's really just to diversify the channel a little more. The same way we're doing with these lives and trying to do these lives every week. And as far as the channel memberships go, so channel memberships, there's one tier just if you want to support the channel. There's no like hidden content behind paywalls, anything like that. And then the upper tier, the $4.99 tier, that's for anyone who wants to take part in the box breaks. Basically, if you're buying more than 2 packs, you save money. It's kind of rewarding people for, if they want to spend, get more than 1 pack, and, kind of do them all. It's just a way for them to save money for, supporting the channel more. But as far as like paywalls for content, nothing like that. I'm not charging any type of paywall to see certain premium content. It's literally just more ways to support the channel, more ways for me to up the content, eventually get editors, eventually make, more quality content. But as far as like the Pokemon investing side, all the regular content, nothing is changing. So I just want to make that very clear in this. But going from there, so all right, so you're off Whatnot. You've always been, buying, selling, selling to the streamers, and you were selling for yourself, and now you're taking plays on singles. So what was the biggest, I guess, factor for you to kind of jump ship, and what gave you the confidence that you could kind of make this work without the Whatnot and without the pack breaks?
Yeah, so just in the last like 6 months or so, modern pack breaks in general, unless you're doing crazy like bounties, like insane games, like you're playing like a dunk game in the background, and I don't know, you got carnival games going on with like flashing lights and this crazy production. You got some, chick in a bikini and a dude in like short shorts in the background flexing. Like, unless you're doing all of that as a pack breaker, a modern pack breaker, or unless you're PokeRev, you're really not making a ton of money. So like I would make between 50 cents and $1 per pack, like after fees and shipping and everything. And like, so think of how many packs you have to break in succession, in quick succession, before you make a decent profit over and over and over and over again, to the point where I don't want to say it gets boring, because I always loved breaking packs and I still love breaking packs. Like I like opening packs. Like just the other day, I haven't opened a lot of packs lately since I sort of got off Whatnot. I just got the urge to open packs, and that's something that I hadn't had in a long time. And it was super cool because I just went to my shelf and opened a couple Crown Zenith packs, a couple Fusion Strike packs, and I hit a couple cool things, and it was like organically fun, which is something I never would have done while I was breaking on Whatnot, because I was ripping for other people all day. So like I would never do that. So like it's one of those things that I wasn't making a lot of money on, and it was like fun, but it wasn't that much fun for a long time. And I wasn't willing to compromise and do all those things that I said that I saw other people doing that were making them successful. Like I wasn't willing to like do a $10,000 bounty, unwinnable bounty, to encourage like people to come in and bid higher just to kind of like get the eyes on it. Or I wasn't willing to do like whatever it is that I see a lot happening on these big streams that are like, I consider to be other layers of gambling that were like, well, I understand why it would make it exciting. It felt toxic and predatory. And I would feel myself getting frustrated watching some of my competition succeed in what I felt like was bad business practices. And rather than like let that affect me, which it was affecting me over a long period of time, I would just sit back and be like, why are these people? And I would find myself blaming the buyers. Like, why are these people buying from these other streamers who are clearly scamming and then I felt like that was wrong. It shouldn't be the buyer that I'm blaming. It's the seller who's responsible. And so then when I would go and look at the seller and I'd look at people in the chat saying something about it, they would get banned, they would get blacklisted. That it seemed like the mods didn't care about it. The worst offenders were the ones with the most viewership and the ones raking in the most money for the apps. It seemed, like I said, this is all just opinion. Like, don't come after me, Whatnot. This is literally just what I see. It's not like a market research or anything, but I didn't like what I was seeing. And rather than lean heavier into that, which is what you would have had to do, like, here's what it felt like. I used to be a competitive card player. Like, I played Magic the Gathering, Pokemon, Legend of the Five Rings competitively in like the circuits and whatever. And it felt to me like the game was running and everyone was cheating. Like, everyone was playing the same game, but everyone was cheating. And there's like a special way you had to cheat to play. But the judges knew it, the players knew it, everyone knew it. Even the people watching, they knew it. ESPN 2 or ESPN 8 knew it. But instead of getting the cheating out of the game, it was so rampant, you were encouraged as a new player to just learn how to cheat. And like that felt like the environment that it was becoming. And I really didn't like that. I spoke out about it in the Discord multiple times. I, of course, wasn't running that on my channel, but it was a detriment to my own channel not running these crazy bounties, these bigger, crazier games. Like, and so for like what? For like the 50 cents or $1 that I was getting per pack, and then getting frustrated watching other customers who I legitimately, people in the hobby who would eventually find their way to my stream maybe, or to some other stream. It's like people are going to take that and make it think that I only care about these people coming to my stream. Of course I care about these people coming to my stream. I'm a freaking business. But
Josh, I think, Josh, you're...
I don't want people getting burned in the hobby in someone else's stream and then never coming back to the hobby because they felt so burned going on whatever the biggest, worst streamer is that's like running a duck race or some gambling, you know what I mean? So
all right, so hold on. So all right, We know that you want to have a boxing match against the owner or whatnot.
Dude, I
We'll
love
let you bash on them
dude,
after this,
great.
but we'll let you bash on them more after. But how did so basically go to the transition. So the day you quit to what you're doing now, like how did you replace the same income, doing something different?
So I had seen the writing on the wall over the last 6 months, modern, and I of course was frustrated at it, but I had been building up on the side my eBay because like I don't know, you guys have been in these whatnot streams where things go really low and the streamer's like, guys, this is going so low, I'm just gonna sell this on eBay. That's what was happening. I would sell things on whatnot. It would go really low, and I would sell that thing. I'd be like, all right, guys, well, I'm just not going to put the rest of this stuff up then. I'm just going to put it on eBay instead, and it'll sell for twice as much. So, like, I eventually just moved my inventory over to the platform it would sell for a higher amount on. So, like, it wasn't a matter of like, I was making a really big stand. Yes. Do I have ethical, moral, like issues with what's happening in other people's streams that I can't control? Absolutely. I can't control that though. All I can do is say what I agree and disagree on and do what I do believe in on my own channel. And so that's what I had to do. I didn't want to be associated with it anymore. I just had to take a step back. And so I had been pivoting for the last couple of months, like onto my eBay, onto my TCG player. I had been sort of soft planning potentially to like make that move. And I went to a Collecticon. It was Orlando Collecticon, and I had already made it in my head the decision. But like I had said in my head that if I had a good Orlando Collecticon, like a really good one, I would take that and roll into it and basically just leave whatnot. And like I was gonna take a picture next to their booth at the Orlando Collecticon, like, yo, peace, like in person, but they didn't have a booth there. And it was hella funny because I went looking for them. They had no booth. So I didn't take the picture. I ended up making the video. I left whatnot formally as like a piece. I'm out just because I could sell things better, more on another platform, basically. So I migrated all of my inventory, which was majority slabs and sealed. I will have you know, my modern sealed inventory is mostly still on the shelf behind me. I don't sell much modern sealed anymore. I'm more of a investor these days on that, I guess you could say.
That's right.
Because
that's what we like to hear on Nostalgianomics.
I do believe it's going to go up in price more than it's at now. I'm not willing to sell it at what I consider a break even or a loss. So I guess you could call it, I'm speculating, but that's what I do with my modern sealed. But all my slabs, they move great on eBay. I sell on Instagram. So reach out to me on Instagram if you guys ever have any needs for PSA 10s or PSA 1s. Those are the only two things I sell is PSA 10s and 1s. That's it. So that's my
9s,
brand. 10s and 1s. That's my brand. Yeah.
So do you grade?
I grade everything. Yeah. So I buy collections. Most of what happens? I buy binders. I buy lots. I buy collections. And the good cards that I feel are good condition, I'll grade out. The ones that I don't feel are gradable, I'll sell out as singles. The ones that are really bad that people are like, oh no, I'll potentially grade those as PSA 1s, and if it's a cool Pokemon, maybe I can sell it. So there's like,
well, what do you do? What do you do when they come back as like a 2 or a 9?
2s are bad. 9s, on the other hand, I sell mystery bags for $19.99 with a PSA 7 through 9 slab on my eBay. So for $20 with shipping and everything, you can buy most likely a PSA 9, one of my failed modern grades, which, a lot of Crown Zenith Radiant Charizards, a lot of,
That sounds an awful lot like gambling there, Josh. I don't know.
Well, that's the thing. Like, I feel like the whole mystery bag thing gets a really bad rap. And I personally have always been one to like defend mystery bags in the same way that I don't participate in box breaks and I don't participate in like those types of things. I don't buy mystery bags, but I've seen good ones. I've seen bad ones. And I make mystery bags in, like I said, that $20 mystery bag that I run. And it's where all my failed 9s go. And it's just in the listing. It says, in the description, it's a PSA 7 plus, so I'll say right now, most of them are 9s, but occasionally, there's a 7 that slips in, but those are rare because I try to be a better grader than that. Like I've sent over 200 cards to PSA last month. And so like, if you're sending that many cards to PSA, you really can't have bad, you really shouldn't be pre-grading that poorly, because you're going to very quickly be ending up back at Wendy's at that rate. So
yeah. Hey, to everyone who's in the chat, my internet is out in my area, and so I am on my phone streaming this, and so I can see all the comments, but I can't really type in to respond. So if I'm not responding to anybody, anybody's comments, that's why. But yeah, man. So I see Radar in the chat. What's up, man? Walrus always asking for mod status. I don't even know how to mod people, man. If you can tell me how, I'll mod you.
If you modded Mr. Walrus, that would be dangerous.
You know, some people like Mike, and I see some other people, you know, guys, yeah, I always accept, you know, constructive criticism. I'm not mad at anyone, you know, put me on blast for any of the pack breaks or any of the other stuff. Like, you know, feel free to call it out. I listen to all of it.
Because your community cares. That's all it
is.
So,
yeah, none of it hurts my feelings. I'd much rather you just be like straight up honest, throw it out there. That way I get the real feedback instead of just like tuning out or unsubscribing. Like, let me know, and I'll fix things and make things better in the future. But I just know that, you know, I'm just trying to give a little piece of a little piece of something for everyone. But yeah, no, I agree with you on the slabs though. It's like, it just seems like unless you're, you know, really large, like, I mean, I had Pokey and E on Brian, and you know, he's 100% sealed. Like, he does like $3 million a year in sealed product. And, you know, obviously like the giant stores we see on eBay or TCG Player, you can do it when you're huge. But I feel like most everyone who doesn't have that level of distribution, everyone's, you know, singles, grading, selling the slabs. I feel like that's how the majority of people in this community that are doing it full time and making a living are doing it. And then obviously, like, kind of like, I know Rudy's talked about it, and, you know, you're kind of doing that now. It's like, you know, you use the profits and, you know, some of the products you get from distribution, and you leave some put away for the future, you know, whether it be a case or 2 cases of every set, and you just kind of go from there. And that's kind of your retirement at the end of your career. And that's kind of what, you know, Rudy's talked about with what card shops do. And that's just kind of what, you know, I guess I'm trying to do, where I know I get like a lot of heat for me and Walrus were having a conversation on Instagram about, like, he's asking me like, well, how do you make income? And I'm like, well, I don't. It wasn't computing for him. And it's like, it's kind of the difference of investing and having like a business is, if you're an investor, it's like a 401k. You know, your 401k doesn't produce income until the end of your life when you start drawing from it. It's the same thing with like investing. It's like, yeah, if you're straight investing and you're bringing outside money like from your job and investing into sealed product and you're stacking it away, you're not making an income. You're not flipping it. You're not making those dollars that you're going to make in the singles game, buying collections, grading cards. And so it feels like, you know, it's worse. And if you're looking at it in a straight returns, I've talked about it a million times, of course it's worse. If you're going to take the time, you're going to source cards, you're going to grade them, you will 100%, if you do it right, if you're good, 100% make a better return than investing. But you're comparing apples to oranges. It's a passive.
Talk about an uncomfortable topic here, Alex.
Yeah.
Because of what you brought up, it does sort of bring up something that it's something that I hear a lot in the hobby, and a lot of, I think, YouTube culture has sort of bred this in card collecting and in investing. We'll say the I word, especially because we talk about it on the channel a lot, especially. But I believe that there's a lot of people in this hobby, and I say this respectfully, but they will buy cards and they will never sell a card. They will literally buy, and never, ever, ever sell a card in the entire hobby. And they will call it investing, and they will make excuses for themselves that the reason they don't sell is because it's investing in the future. While I do believe that, while you can believe that could be true, you can wholeheartedly believe that, I believe that it's important to learn how to sell your cards, because when you pull a $20 card, okay, so here you are, little Timmy, you're opening a pack of cards at Walmart, right? You just got to the parking lot, you're in your car, you got your camera set up, you're going to video on Instagram, you got your pack of crowns in it, you pulled the Giratina, the gold Giratina. Oh my gosh, you pulled it! I don't have a sleeve. Oh my gosh, I have to go run back in and buy an ETB with the card in my hand. You run with it with the card in your hand. You buy a whole ETB of Paldea Evolve. You don't care about the packs. You throw them away. You give them to some dumb kid in the front of the store. You get the ETB sleeves out. You put it in the sleeve. You're like, cool. This is $100. I pulled $100 card. Woo! There's no green number that puts that $100 after you pull it on the screen into your wallet until you go to TCG Player, until you make an account, until you post that card for 80 something dollars because you have to undercut the market by a few dollars because you're a new account, until you go to Facebook, you list it, and you realize, oh shoot, I have to pay shipping, I have to pay fees, and you think to yourself, well, I don't want to sell that. That's $100 card. I'm only making $80. I'm just going to keep it. And they put it in their binder and they say, I'm just going to wait until I can sell it until later. And you know what happens? Life happens. You know, you collect Pokemon 2 or 3 more sets. You get a new job, you get a new girlfriend, you get married, you have a kid, whatever it is, and you forget about those cards in your binder and they go in the closet. Well, here's 2 scenarios that can happen from that situation. Either 10 years go by and in the closet, you go, a pandemic happens and you find that Pokemon card in the closet. And you're like, well, holy shit, Pokemon's gone up 1,000,000% and I'm rich now. I'm going to grade it and sell it as a PSA 10 and get my $1 million and call it and retire. Or 10 years go by and nobody's heard of Pokemon for 10 years because guess what? There was a time in this hobby between the years of like 2004 to like 2012, 13, 14, 15, there were dark times where literally no one cared and you couldn't sell that card for anything. So if you found that card in your closet during those times, you'd have a totally different reaction than when you found it in the boom times. So like, I think that most people, when they think of Pokemon, they think that you automatically you get money from it. That if you have your cards, it's an easy cash out. That no matter what, if it goes to zero, you can sell it to someone eventually, and it's going to be an easy cash out. But that's the difference between Pokemon and a 401k. You can press a button, well, not a 401k, but like a traditional stock. 401ks, you have to do some extra, you want to liquidate that. You have to go through your account, whatever it is you got to do extra. But
technically you could push a button and put it into cash. I mean, you don't have to take it out of the account, but yeah, you could go to cash.
Yeah, but you lose some percentage. But like a traditional stock, you just sell it for whatever the market price is, however much it is. Pokemon's a little different than that. So like I do speculate in Pokemon, and I think that it can be considered an investment as long as the market continues. And in 10 years from now, we wake up and the simulation keeps going and it's still $1,000 for but dude, it's a piece of cardboard. It's a real piece of cardboard, guys. Like every single one of these things, like I run my whole business based on cardboard, and that should be concerning. It's a little bit concerning to me. So if it's not concerning, that's fine. But it's just like, I think about that. And while I've been doing it since I was 8 years old and I feel very comfortable in it, there's a reason why people are nervous about cardboard and investing in it, because they've seen the times where it's not the hottest thing, where the news isn't talking about it, where Logan Paul isn't making things, new Logic isn't buying. There's a section of the universe in the multiverse where Pokemon didn't boom in the pandemic, where everyone who kept their cards right before it boomed in 2020, they were fools. Where SM Pratt, where Pokenomics, where Zach Jim Mint Pokemon, where Gary King Pokemon, they look like idiots. There is a universe where that is true. That's not the universe we live in now, but I've seen that universe, and I just want to throw that out there. That it's very possible, And if you
I've seen the ice wall, so I hear you.
Okay, fair. But
no, but
to say the least, I am bullish on Pokemon, but it's important to learn how to sell a card. Long story short is, chat, if you've never sold a card out there, please, for me, go make a TCG Player account. Join a Facebook group. Go, post a card on eBay, start an eBay, do something, you know what I mean? because it's
Yeah.
important to know how. That's all I'm saying, because you don't get the money that you, when you pull the card out of the pack, until you actually sell the card. That's very distinct. As someone who sells a card for a living, it's lots of cards for a living, if I could just press a button and have all of that stuff behind me just sell for what the market price is, or under market price, and not have to do the work, done. But there is no button I can press that'll do that. So,
and I think to expand on that more is, guys, I know everyone looks like he just said, everyone keeps looking like geniuses, holding into eternity. Now Sun and Moon's going crazy, and anyone who sold, it makes them look stupid. But Josh is right. Like, I mean, I'm kind of against the idea of like going back to like the 2000s, early teens, just because social media wasn't there like it is now. It didn't have anywhere near the popularity. I don't know if it's ever going to get back to that, just because of how big, how worldwide connected everything is. But he's right. There could come a time where things don't move and grow and continue to do what they're doing. That's why I've always preached, and I'm going to say it again right now, with whatever you're doing, whether it be you're buying just a couple of boxes, or you're buying a couple of cases, you're buying multiple cases, you're buying a few, whatever you're doing, when you get to those doubles and triples, it's always the right idea. And again, might not be the best idea, because they could keep going, but it's the safest way to take your gains and get into profit, or at least get your money back, and then you can hold the rest completely risk-free. That way, if it goes into oblivion, you're set. You still made a bunch of the money. If it falls to nothing, hey, that's great. You already had your original investment back. So perfect way to think about it. You buy 2 cases. They're $600 each, right? Those boxes go up to $225, and now those cases are worth, whatever that is, like $1,400. You can sell that one case. Even after shipping and fees, you should be close to all your money back on those cases. And now you can keep that whole other case for free. Maybe you got to sell 1 box, you keep 5 boxes for free. And that's how you build that position over time, completely risk-free. And so over time, like if you've been doing that with Sword and Shield, maybe you're still in a lot of positions. Some of them you could have moved out depending on the quantity you had. But it's a way to continuously kind of, rent your inventory, be able to purchase new product. Because one of the things is, once product gets to a certain level, say once it gets to $1,000, right? What's more likely, for that $1,000 box to go to $2,000, or for 10 $100 boxes to go to $200? And so sometimes that money can be used a lot better somewhere else. Now in Josh's case, that money can be used a lot better if he needs more money for purchasing collections, continue to, grade cards and make his business grow. And so it's always best to audit your collection at least every quarter, 6 months, a year at least, and get an idea of what you're going to continue to hold. If you still believe in it, if you still see the same, forward, especially when it comes to reprints, staying in tune with the market, especially with Lost Origin now, getting a reprint. I know you wanted to talk about that. Staying ahead of the news, because all of us in the community know the news, but not everyone watches YouTube. Not everyone hears all this. So being able to, know when the news is coming and kind of get ahead of it, you can take some of the profits now, buy back in when everything does drop. You can take advantage of things like that in the market too. So yeah, I agree with you. Just buying and never selling probably isn't the right route. It's probably worked out very good for a lot of people up to this point, but it might not always work.
And I think that the people that it worked out really well for up until this point, they didn't never sell. You know what I mean? Because like, you have to sell eventually a little bit, usually. And if you don't really truly have to ever sell, then I'm genuinely envious of your position in life to literally just be able to buy and buy and buy and never have any pressure to sell. Because like, there's a certain level, I don't know, maybe I'm lying to myself about this, but like, I think there's a certain level of like, a feeling of when you let something go, there's a certain freeing sensation to let something go. Once you've enjoyed it for a while, maybe you've had something in your collection for a while, you've gotten your enjoyment out of it, you've looked at that slab or that sealed booster box as much as you're going to look at, you've gained your profits that you wanted to, and you want to let it go to someone else. Like, there's a certain level of like metaphysical enjoyment to be had about letting go of some things. So I think there's something to be said for that too, without getting too philosophical. But that being said, though, I do want to talk about that Lost Origin reprint that we just got word of, because I want to know if, speaking of bearishness and bullishness, if you are ready, you, whichever way that this live is facing where you're viewing it, are ready for the overwhelming bearishness that is going to occur after this Lost Origin just slams the market right now. Because I think by the time Lost Origin, this reprint comes out, it's going to be right when the 151 and like right after Paldea evolved, and like it's going to be right around the time where there's a lot of other things happening in the hobby that, like, I don't know how deep the pockets are of the hobby that can handle all that. And I seem to remember a little set called Fusion Strike that came out right after Celebrations and then got a big reprint right afterwards with Evolving Skies. And I remember Evolving Skies being about $100 at that exact moment in time because Celebrations came out, Fusion Strike, Evolving Skies got its like third reprint. That was one of the last, or that was like the second to last reprint it had. But I want to know if you think that the Lost Origin boxes can hold at their, what are they, like 170 right now?
Yeah, I think they've already dropped, but I mean, and you left out a lot. I mean, that's just Pokemon. And then you have, you know, Lorcana. Then you have
not even in One Piece, I'm sure, and like all the other Sorcery TCG is coming out, you know, and like
Yu-Gi-Oh releasing all of their old sets and booster boxes, all the originals. You got Magic releasing Lord of the Rings. That collector box is already $2,000 plus. I mean, this is a crazy time. And so one thing, yes, there is going to be some waves right here. There's going to be some valleys. Also, what's going to be great about this is what I love about it. All the people who always say, if only prices were that low again, I'd buy it all up. I'd go on a shopping spree. I'd buy everything.
None of them are gonna buy, dude.
We're gonna get to see.
You know it. They're all gonna be crying the most.
Because that's one of the things you always get, right? Because I'm sure you were around kind of, when did you get back in, like 15, 16, or were you always in?
No, I was later. I was 20. So Hidden Fates dragged me and my fiance kicking and screaming into the hobby. And then we found the tag teams and Sun and Moon, late Sun and Moon era, and we really loved it. But it was Hidden Fates. So 2019. Yeah,
because the one of the things I always get is like, oh, if I was around when base set boxes were $800 and Jungle was $500 and $300, I'd have bought them all. It's like, no, you wouldn't have. No, you wouldn't have. Because back then, Pokemon was not a proven market. I mean, to take $500, $1,000 out of your bank account and buy something to sit in a safe or on a shelf, it wasn't done. It wasn't like it is now, right? It'd be like the beginning of like the stock market, or before anything was proven, or it just, you don't do it. You think you would, but you don't. And we're going to find out really quickly all the people that are going to put their money where their mouth is when all of these prices inevitably come down. I mean, with Lost Origin getting reprinted, the question becomes, well, Silver Tempest, are we going to see another wave of Crown Zenith, even though it doesn't need it? I don't know how far back it's going to go, but there's probably going to be more reprints. Like if they're reprinting one yellow border set, that means they're going to reprint some sets with yellow borders.
Okay, so tinfoil hat here. I was talking about this. I was talking to my fiance about it, but she really didn't want to hear it. But I'm sure you in the chat wants to hear it a lot more. I thought it was weird that they went to Lost Origin before Brilliant Star, because I've been in my distributor's ear. Like I've been like a little worm in his ear for the last 6 months telling him, watch out for that Brilliant Stars reprint. Because I would have thought that Brilliant Stars would have been the one they went to first, because it never got that true reprint that anything else really got. Neither did Lost Origin, neither did Silver Tempest, neither did Astral Radiance. Any of those last 4 sets still haven't gotten their massive reprint. You know, every other set before that has already gotten several reprints, and it was kind of up in the air whether I thought they were going to go to, you know, Fusion Strike or before. But I was pretty sure they'd go at least to Brilliant Star. So I would have put money on it. So the fact that they went Lost Origin leads me either to believe that anything, like you said, is on the table. Literally, they could go all the way back to Sword and Shield base or Battle Styles or something and go out of rotation if they're just printing anything, which I find less likely to be the case. And maybe they're skipping Brilliant Star and they are just going to Lost Origin, and they might maybe reprint Silver Tempest because booster boxes are kind of expensive, and you know it's a good set and it's the last set. But I don't see them reprinting Astral Radiance. You know.
Well, hey, take this one. So you know more about dealing with distributors. Waller says we'll start see distributors hold back products and sell it higher later. I've always wondered this. Do you think distributors will start if prices start to drop low? Do you think they will hold product, or is their sole purpose to get rid of it as soon as possible? Like, how do you think that'll go?
Yeah, so I have a personal relationship with my distributor, and I know because I live close enough to him that I can go down in person and pick it up. So like a lot of people, they order their online forms and they talk to their sales rep maybe on the phone once a month when they're like, hey, the invoice is due or whatever it is. But I have a very good and like fluid relationship with my distributor because we have a in-person relationship. And he does hold product back that he speculates on to sell at a later point. Like, for example, I know for a fact that he has several pallets of like celebrations, UPCs, and like Evolving Skies booster boxes. And like he holds that back for later times. And so if he's a small guy doing that, I know the bigger ones, and he's been doing it for a while, but not as long as some of the other ones. So like, if they are, then I'm pretty sure the bigger ones are. And if you could sell it for more, why wouldn't you? If you could still sell out of it and it just took you maybe a bit more time longer, but you're able to allocate it out to more stores because they weren't just buying it all up to resell it. Like as a distributor, I don't see why they wouldn't do that. But it goes the other way as well. If people just don't buy it at that price, and if the market rejects it, the distributors can put it for all they want at 120. And I'm going to laugh at that. I'm going to say, well, I guess you're going to have some Lost Origin in stock because I can buy it on Facebook for 110 right now. And the distributors will lower the price if they feel they want to sell it and liquidate. But if it's something like that they're confident on, then they may throw it back on the shelf and say, all right, that's fine. We'll just hold it for later. Just like with anything, every business, even distributors, is going to be limited by liquidity and cash flow. The numbers for a distributor are just far bigger than numbers for someone like me. Instead of dealing in the 5 to 10,000s, they're dealing in the 100 to 200,000s to $500,000. I heard one time there's a $500,000 invoice they had to deal with. So like the numbers are far larger. And when you are dealing in such a large amount of inventory, it becomes a little bit more of a risk and something that you may not, when you decide to throw a few cases of Celebrations UPCs or a few pallets, I'm sorry, not cases, on the shelf, it's a little bit more of a decision that goes into that than me deciding to take one booster box from my case and put that on the shelf. Like, it's a little bit of a different risk level assessment. That's the thing. So yeah, I think that distributors may charge higher for it, but if the market says no, which I think they will, I think that the market can go to $100 on Lost Origin, bro.
Yeah, and but on the bullish, playing the bullish side, right? I got to do it.
Yeah, for sure. We got to have this conversation, but I make
So having the unique opportunity to go through like two different, I guess it kind of happens sometimes in Sun and Moon. Like, Shining Legends got a huge reprint that killed it, but and then obviously Hidden Fates. But the big reprints, like from I remember, it was Primal Clash and Roaring Skies, and they were high hundreds and dropped all the way down to like 70s. Mm-hmm. And what happened was, a lot of people say it's because of the boom that brought those back. I think they were already coming back, but either way, what happened is the boom happened 2019-20. You got in, a bunch of people got in during that time, so they had never experienced that type of thing. But then come along Battle Styles, Fusion Strike, Chilling Reign. Now pretty much everyone that got in the hobby experienced it already. They saw what happened, and now I don't think it's going to be as big of a shock because people have seen it now. People like me have seen it twice, and now people have seen what happened with those and saw the recovery. And so I think there's definitely going to be a drop, but I think the recovery is going to be along the same lines because people kind of see how the markets move. I could be wrong.
Would it be beating a horse with the stick if I talked about that Roaring Skies reprint situation? Because I think it's very, very relevant to the Evolving Skies, and it's more than just the name, right? And the price. Roaring Skies got to what, $300, $400, just like Evolving Skies?
Very briefly.
Yeah, very briefly.
It wasn't like Evolving Skies where it was like steady.
Okay, so I wasn't around at that time, but I remember the stories of it getting to about $300 to $400. I don't know for how long though. So you were around at that time, correct? So
Yeah.
okay, so was it like a month or two, or was it less time than
Oh,
that?
I can't remember that. I just remember like they were
We've been
pretty
at
like
$400 for about 3 months now.
yeah, because they were pretty steady in the high hundreds, low twos, and then there was like a spike, and then there was the reprint. Is how I remember it.
And the reprint killed it. It went from 400 to 100, right? And then you didn't hear
Yeah.
people talk about Roaring Skies for another 6 years. It's a very real possibility for a $400 booster box that everyone's so sure isn't getting reprinted to go from 400 to 100. Do you think that those boxes, when they go from 400 to 100, the people who have those boxes are likely to sell at 100 to recoup their loss and then just exit the hobby with their tail between their legs and say, I'm done, peace? Or do you think they're likely to say, you know what, screw this, I'm waiting until it hits 400 again? And do you think that then those same people would be able to wait 5 more years like it took for Roaring Skies to recover again to the $400?
And so one, I think they're such different sets, man. Roaring Skies didn't have near the value that Evolving Skies has. Like it didn't have all those hits. It didn't have a Moonbryon going for over $1,000. It didn't have that. Like Shaman was expensive, but after Shaman, it had a Rayquaza. It didn't have too much depth. Like Evolving Skies has so much depth to it and so many cards people want. I couldn't see that ever happening with Evolving Skies. I mean, now if we want to talk about like the other side of that though, of like something crashing, like perfect example would be like the base set Charizard, the PSA 9 going from $1,000 to $7,000 and then back down to like 1,200, whatever it is now. So that's that. If something like that happens, I don't know how you stick around. I think so many people got a bad taste in their mouth, and that hurt a lot of people. I don't know how you if you're just coming in. You're just starting to put money into this and that it happens. I think that's enough for anyone to say, yeah, this is a scam. This doesn't work. All these people on YouTube are lying. This is, just like a make money online type scheme. And so I think it'd be terrible for the hobby if something like that happened. I just don't see it happening. Lost Origin, I could see dropping to $100 a box and staying there for a little while, but Evolving Skies, I can't see it, man. I can't see it.
I just want to be the first one to, not the first one. Never mind. I can't say that. There's someone on the internet right now saying Evolving Skies can go to 0, and then there's someone on the other side of the internet saying Evolving Skies to 1,000. But I don't fall in either of those categories really. I'm more in the I could see it going to 1,000, sure, but I don't think it's likely. With a reprint, I think that it would shatter the confidence that was built in Evolving Skies in the last few months, where people have just said they've been looking there. Everyone who had cases of Evolving Skies is just sitting there behind their cases like, where's that reprint, everyone? And they're feeling smug as they possibly could be. But the same token, when the reprint, if it were to happen, and when it does happen, if it does, those same people wouldn't be having that same smug, it would be a different mentality. So like, I think it's easy to say that it's a great investment until it crashes. And if it doesn't crash, then I personally have no skin in the game. I got some loose Evolving Skies booster packs. I sold all of my Evolving Skies at 200 and 200, from 200 to 260 on the rise up from 200 to 250. That was when I sold all of my Evolving Skies. And I felt good about that. I bought
I hit a little higher, like I got to 300, but yeah, I'm gonna be honest. I've considered buying a $400 Evolving Skies booster box.
And I think it would be interesting if you did that just for an experiment for your own sake, so that we can look at that mentality. So like, okay, we could think of this conversation, right? If you had it's different if you bought it at $100, right? And it did this whole rise and because you're net zero. But if you bought it at $400, it would be really interesting to hear in a year after you bought it at that $400, what you then decided to do with it wherever the price was at. You know what I mean? Because like,
for me, it'd be a straight collection. So like what I did is, I was 100% convinced the reprint was coming. Everyone said it was. Like people I know in the community said they were getting one. Their distributors said all this stuff. So I sold every single one I had. And now I'm like, man, I mean, I want one for my collection. I want to have one box. I thought I was going to get like more cases. And I've like been thinking, I'm only going to let this go another like 6 months or so. Then I'm probably going to be like, okay, I'm going to buy a box. So I want to have one. Because if it doesn't get reprinted, yeah, we're going to see that in the high hundreds. We just are.
And for, like you said, it'd be a collection piece for you. So like you probably wouldn't want to sell it. But it would be interesting that like after you had your fun with it, after you stop liking sealed collections and like you're reevaluating, I would be interested to hear like your thought process at that point. Because like I said, I think it's very different when you buy in at a product when it's at that $100 and you see it go on the roller coaster and you're just kind of like looking back at it. But like when you did that, but then you also bought in at that highest high and you're like, you know what? I'm on this roller coaster, but not only am I on it, but I'm riding it with my hands up and I love it. You just love it. Like you're riding it, but you're all about it. Cause like some people are riding the roller coaster, but they're gripping on, you know, but so it would be interesting to hear someone who buys Evolving Skies at 400 a booster box. They love roller coasters and they love riding with their arms up and they are thrill seekers. That's all I got to say about that.
Yeah, it would be kind of fun. I know another box I was thinking about buying, just for again pure collection, just kind of remember, you know, the whole Rudy like experience on YouTube, because one of the biggest things on his channel was Ultimate Masters, you know, bingo and all that. I've been thinking about buying an Ultimate Masters box.
I mean, Magic. Do you like Magic? Are you an MTG collector? Like,
I'm not like deep involved, you know. But again, I'm not deep involved in One Piece either. But I found myself buying One Piece product.
Dude, I love Magic, and I won't talk about it right now because I don't want to go down a rabbit hole. But it's in dark places, man. Until they fire everyone at Wizards of the Coast, until I hear like literally the CEOs, all that corporate, they're all gone. I don't think I could put another dollar in it. And you're talking to a guy who loves Magic. Like, I think Magic is the only reason we have this hobby. The fact that Magic the Gathering kept local game stores basically afloat for as long as it did during those dark times where Pokemon was like setting up. Like, I personally think that Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Even have better fundamentals right now than Magic has. And anyone who knows me knows that me saying good things about Yu-Gi-Oh! It's very, I have to be like,
why you gotta hate on Yu-Gi-Oh? Come on.
I grew up in card shops, and so I'm a Magic player, and Magic players and Yu-Gi-Oh! Players have always had this like weird rivalry, I guess. And like,
okay.
And like, it's just something about it that I've never been able to shake. And I love my friends who love Yu-Gi-Oh! I respect that, but I will say that even Yu-Gi-Oh! Has better fundamentals than Magic right now with like grading and like collectability and what they're doing with reprints and just in general everything. But like Magic, it's in a dark spot. So
one of the other like hard things to look at, like not about Magic, but going back to like the situation about like the reprints and things dropping. You know, it's so hard, you know, to look back at like past data points, because everyone, and even me, I'm not like, you know, I'm not like ignoring it or denying it, but because the boom did have a huge effect. But at the same time, those Snorlax GX boxes, those were falling off the shelves at Walmart. They couldn't sell them for $20. Shining Legends Super Premium Collections. I remember buying them at Walmart for $39.99 because no one wanted them. They were on sale, had big stickers on them. I mean,
Raichu boxes. You remember the Shining Legends Raichu boxes?
You couldn't get them.
Those are what I remember seeing that nobody wanted. That you would go in, we'd go hunting for Hidden Fates, and we'd be disappointed, and we'd leave with like Tag Team GX like 10s and like Raichu, you know, shiny Legends boxes. So those are the days, man.
Yeah, I mean, all that stuff. It was just like it all got crushed so much, and time went by. It rose, started to rise, and it's just like, yeah, you can say we went through a boom, but you know, and you can continue to say things are still, you know, crazy, but things still continue to rise over time. Like the collection boxes, the tins, the build and battle stadiums now are starting even like on some sets. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy that like even these really niche auxiliary products are starting to see some growth. And I don't know. I don't know. It just begs that question that like, is there a wrong move when it comes to time? And I know everyone always wants to say, well, I know it's the stuff isn't actually have any inherent value, and it can all fall apart, and the mania can end. But a lot these card games have been doing it a lot longer than these last 3-4 years since the pandemic. I mean, these card games have been doing the same stuff for years and years and years. I don't know, man. I'm still on the bandwagon of I'm staying the course. I'm on my ship, sailing through the storm, sailing in the sun. I'm staying the course through all of it. So that's where I'm at on it.
So I have a question. Speaking of staying the course, if you were a Japanese like Pokemon, I know you're more into English or whatever, Seal, but if right now you were like a sealed Japanese, specifically like Sun and Moon era, XY, like all these like era tag team, the things that are like blowing up right now in the Japanese market, do you think you would be a seller in this market for that? Or do you think you would be diamond hands and you think it has more room to grow at this point? Because I do want to talk about in this stream a little bit some of the modern current events that are going on right now. And one of the things that I think the most fascinating thing that's happening is this like growth that we're seeing in the Sun and Moon era, specifically that era, the tag teams, GXs, and mostly in Japanese, but it's also bled over to English. And I just want to know if you think that this is like a natural, like, oh yeah, Japanese was way undervalued for a long time and now it's finally coming to and people are realizing, or do you think that this now's the time to sell and it's kind of in a bit of a bubble? Because I'm just curious what your opinion on that is, having probably not a lot of skin in the game, you know?
I mean, we're definitely in some sort of a bubble. I mean, here's what I would do. I would do the exact same thing I said earlier. If you're deep in it, I would definitely take some profits. That's what I would do, you know, and not telling anyone I'll do anything. I would take some profits. I wouldn't sell everything because, like you said, you never know how far it could go. But I would try to get your original investment out, and I would just let everything else ride to the sunset. That's how I feel about it. If your risk level, risk tolerance, if you just truly don't need the money at all, like this is just fun for you, all your traditional investments, like your bills are paid, you got emergency fund, you're good. I mean, let it run. I mean, look what happened to people with Bitcoin. Let it run. With Tesla, that let it run. With the GameStop, you know, craziness. Like, you know, good things come to those that take risks. But I mean, if you're like looking for any type of like, if you have any type of conservativeness in you at all, and the money does mean something to you, hey, look at me. I'm the most paper hands person there is, right? I sold pretty much everything I had in Pokemon back in 2020. So that should tell you everything. I don't own a single Evolving Skies booster box because I sold it all, you know, at around 300. I mean, that should kind of give you my perspective on what I think about taking gains.
I am also, I think it's seller at that point. I would be. And to the point of, I had a few Japanese boxes that I was sitting on from the Sun and Moon era that, like I had a Tag GX box, and I think I had the one with Remix Bout, the one with Charizard, Blastoise, Venusaur. Like, I had a few different Japanese boxes from that era. I ripped them all, and I'm grading out a lot of them and selling into that market. So it's like they were so cheap for so long. You know, those boxes are $40 out the gate when they come out, and then $50, and then, you know, they're so cheap for so long. And now those boxes, when they come out, they're like 110, 150, and like, it just feels very much so like 2020 felt for English, like when the bull run was really happening. It feels like now that's happening for Japanese at the same time. And so I would probably sell into that, knowing what happened with the bull run of English, like, and I would be maybe looking more at English than Japanese. So,
well, here, let's listen to this. So Christian Diaz, percentage-wise, what do you think is the split between people who hold sealed product as part of a collection or who hold it as pure speculation? My guess is 10% collector, 90% speculator. What do you think on that one?
I do think that the majority of people who buy sealed buy it as an investment and sell it way earlier than they intended to, and therefore I would probably agree with that statement. I do think that the majority of those people buy it with the intention of keeping it as a collector, though. Like, the thing that I think this hobby and us investment like channels like to talk on, we rag on collectors a lot for selling early, or we rag on people for selling, or we try to, I think that there's a certain level of like, you do what you like, and I think that people buy with the intention of holding as a collector for a long time, but they move on. A month or two goes by, and dude, a month or two in Pokemon terms is a long ass time. And there's a lot of stuff that happens that you would rather have that money that you put into the couple boxes that you're sitting on to play in the new stuff, the new hottest thing. And it's like, those people will usually sell that product that they intended to hold so that they can fund the newer, more exciting thing, because that's what everyone on YouTube is talking about. And I don't think those people are doing the wrong thing or a bad thing by like selling their investment early and taking a loss. And I don't think they deserve to be like ridiculed or not ridiculed, but like criticized. I think it's just like, your intentions change. Like, even with your collection, one day you may want to collect every Charizard ever, every single one in a PSA 10. But then when you get around to getting that base set Charizard, you're like, you know what, that's an expensive 10. Maybe I'm going to get a 9. And you buy that 9 and you get the 9. And you're like, wait a second, this 9 is as good as all my 10s. I'm just going to sell all those 10s and buy all 9s. And your collection just changed in a heartbeat because you bought one card and you made one decision and your whole trajectory has changed. So then you're selling all the 10s and you're getting 9s and you're going to hold it. So like, I don't know. I think the intentions change. And I agree with Christian in that I think that most people who buy is like speculating. They're speculating. But I think that more people than he's saying intend to hold it longer. So I think it's a combination. I know it's not really answering the question very well, but I do think that there's a combination there. And you can be a little bit of both. You can be a collector and a speculator, right?
Yeah, and I like how you told me earlier you're a sealed collector too, because I feel like a lot of times people, like especially single card collectors or PSA or slab collectors, they almost don't believe you when you say it. But I'm an actual sealed collector as well. So like when I got back into the hobby, now I'll be honest, I did get the binders of base, jungle, and fossil. Those were my first purchases. But everything after that was, sealed blister packs. I was buying all the theme decks, buying boxes, buying just booster packs, long label, short label, like going through all the different base set, like whether it's Shadowless or Black Triangle or, long crimp, short crimp. Like I was just going and buying everything I was buying was sealed, and I displayed on stands. I put the boxes and packs up, and I'm a true like sealed collector. And so, I don't think just because people are buying sealed product means they think they're investing. A lot of people truly, I know this is hard for some people to understand, but they truly do like the sealed product more than the cards inside. It sounds crazy to some. I get it. As far as like the, speculation compared to collecting, yeah, I think it can change over time. I mean, one of the things I always look at is like TCG Player. 99% of the sales on TCG Player are 1 or 2 boxes. Everyone's buying 1 or 2 boxes. And I find it hard to believe that people are investing in 1 or 2 boxes. And I get everyone's, income's different and everyone's level's different. You can, by all means, buy 1 box and do well over time. But I mean, a lot of people buying 1 or 2 boxes are probably, especially the 2 boxes, most people are opening one and keeping one for their collection, or they're buying one for their collection or to open. But I mean, as far as like speculating, yeah, anyone buying cases, they're doing to speculate. No one is buying cases for that. But 10% to 90%, I don't know. It seems pretty high to me. Maybe I'm just like, it just because of my outlook on the hobby. I could be wrong. I just think because this Pokemon investing space we're in again, it just gets so overblown by how many people that we think are out there doing this. It's not a lot. Like how many people are actually doing what you do and buying collection and grading cards? It's not as many. It's more than it was, but it's not like as widespread as people think. There's not tens of thousands of people, keeping, stacks of sealed cases in their basement. I refuse to believe it's happening at those levels. You think I'm crazy?
Yeah. No, and I mean, when I had like my best friend is getting married soon, so over Memorial Day weekend, I went out and like had did a bunch of events with the wedding party because I'm going to be in it. And it very much is apparent to me that what I do is very niche and very weird and unique, because my best friends, whom I talk to pretty regularly, when I actually talk to them about what I do, it blows their mind. It literally blows their mind when I tell them I sell Pokemon for a living. And they say, oh, cool. You sell Pokemon, like what? The games, the plushies? I'm like, no, cards. And they think I'm like a card player at first. Like, oh, so you like play competitively? Like, no, I sell the cards. And they're like, what? Like, you have a game store? And the conversation is it's so funny because they have no idea. And like most people, even in Pokemon, will never grade a card. Like, I will venture to say that like probably 75% of the people, even in this chat and who watch this, will never send a card to PSA because they don't want to get an account to send one card in. They'll send it through a middleman, and then they'll have them send to PSA because it makes more sense for them to do that when they're only sending one card. So like, do I think that what we do is like replicable? Yes, I do think it's replicable. Do I think there are some things that we do that are uniquely like that I do that are maybe better than some other people in the Pokemon hobby? Potentially. And that's what I try to stake my business on, you know what I mean? And those are things that I like to lean into a little bit more. And that's what I think everyone tries to do, you know, and that's what I recommend people who are in the Pokemon spheres, because there are so many things you can do. Like, there are so many quote unquote plays and directions that you can make to go into the investing, the flipping, the collecting. And like, it's sometimes can be overwhelming. I find that for myself, just finding a lane that I do well, that I like to do well, and a few different lanes, you know, that I can do, and doing that and focusing, it works a little bit better for me and like my business, and like keeps my focus better. So like, that's kind of how I stay sane in this hobby, and how I can continue to, I think, do what I do without becoming overwhelmed, because it does become overwhelming at times. And like with the new Unagabas, man, dude, the Unagaba thing, that was stressful. Like, I'm glad I decided a while ago that I don't play the race to the bottom. None of my plays are the race to the bottom. So I decided a long time ago I probably wasn't going to do the Unagaba. But then watching it all occur, oh man, it was stressful looking at that. And every one of those is going to be raced to the bottom. It's going to be paper handed all the way down. So like, you have to decide what works for you, right? And for me, I'm stressed as hell if my whole business was a literal race to the bottom, if every single thing that I did was grading the newest, hottest promo that everyone's talking about, that everyone's going to do, and just trying to get that first to market premium, and like, you know, going all the way down to where I'm still making a few dollars per card, and I just want to get out of it. Like, that's never been my gig. So like, that's other people's thing.
So a couple people were talking back and forth in the chat. I think it's really good points. I want to throw them up. So, all right. So Nick says, if you're a collector, I don't think you're really worried about what other people think about the product. You collect it because it makes you happy. And then Walrus said, but you still believe your collection will hold some sort of monetary value? No. And that's a great point. So in my mind, at least, you know, when I became like more of an investor and less of a collector, how I see it is like, when I'm buying like one of something, when I buy like a one PSA card or one booster box, like, I'm collecting it. Do I obviously see the future of it and continue to grow? Of course. I still see monetary value in it. I try to get the best price. I make sure to get a grade, like whether it be a 10 or a 9, depending on the card, where I see, you know, a good upward momentum, whether it be for a short amount of time, long period of time. But I think when you start getting into like cases and you're buying like multiple, or you're getting like 5 of the same card, I think that's when it becomes like more of an investment, where, you know, you really don't want 5 of the same card for your collection, right? You're buying 5 because when the price goes up, you want to be able to sell those other 4, make money on them, and keep 1 prize for your collection, or maybe sell all 5, whatever it may be. Same thing like with what I do with booster boxes and ETBs, and I don't do ETBs as much anymore, but is, you know, I buy a whole lot of them, right? Stacks of them, and then when the prices go up, I sell off a good amount of them to recoup my money, make some profit. And then I keep some for future investment. I usually keep 1 on a shelf, And that's kind of what, it's kind of collection and investing. So yeah, I think when you're collecting, you don't care as much about, like Nick said, about what, people think, or about like those things. But with Walrus said, like, yeah, you still care about the monetary value. Like when I bought my first base set booster box, when I hustled and grinded and flipped all kinds of cards, bought out collections, and finally, saved up enough from all my flipping to buy a base set booster box and put it in my safe and be able to look at it. I still thought that base set booster box was going to continue to rise over time, but I had no intention of selling it. It was part of my collection. And so those things change over time depending on the price points. But I think that has a lot to do with it, is like the quantity of your buying and kind of the intention behind it. What do you think?
So Beanie Babies, I think of when I try to think of this question, I think about
Don't pull out the Beanie Babies on us.
Well, it's important because like I collected Beanie Babies as heavily as I collected Pokemon cards at that point in time. Like me and my cousin, she was really into Beanie Babies. My mom, my aunt, my cousin, like that was our thing together, like collecting. I did Pokemon for like me and my friends at school, but like me and my family, we collected Beanie Babies, right? And like it was a big deal. And like we paid $75 for that Princess Diana bear when it came out. I remember because I saved my allowance up for that. And I remember how expensive that damn bear was. That bear is like $5 now. And like I think of it like this, like I personally loved Beanie Babies. Like I loved them. Then when 2020 happened and Pokemon happened, I didn't think about Beanie Babies for 20 years, okay? But then when 2020 happened and Pokemon happened, I saw some online thing where it said like, oh, Beanie Babies are worth a lot of money. I was like, oh shit, really? And so I got my old Beanie Babies out and I got really excited, not because I love the Beanie Babies, and I did love those Beanie Babies before, but I got excited because they were worth a lot of money, and the prospect of them something that was worth nothing into something was like a gold mine. It's like a treasure. It's like finding buried treasure, right? That's the endorphin hit that something like that is. So I instantly cared about them a lot more, even though I didn't care about them for like 15 years. I was just as into Beanie Babies as Pokemon, right? The only difference is Beanie Babies are worth worth nothing, and Pokemon's worth a ton of money. So like, did I then take those Beanie Babies and sell them off when I found out they were worth nothing? No, hell no. I love those things. I still love them, but since they're not worth $1 million anymore, I still love them, but I don't care about them nearly as much. I'm also not selling them. So like, I think a similar thing could be probably said about Pokemon. I'm sure that there are a lot of people out there who love Pokemon so much that they would probably keep it no matter what, right? But there are also people out there who love Pokemon who would also sell it and would be okay with it going to zero after. So, I mean, I think that there are ways that, collecting can go all different ways. So it's just interesting. That question made me think of Beanie Babies specifically because like collections can be worth different things to different people depending on what the perception of it is. I think the question was getting at like, do you think that would you care about your collection still if it was not worth anything? I think that was generally the core of what was being asked. And I think that people who collected Beanie Babies at the time can answer that question for themselves, or maybe something else, not Beanie Babies, but sports cards or whatever it is. It's was worth a lot and isn't a lot now. And you can answer that question for yourself by just evaluating how you would feel in that situation. So I don't know. Did you
play Scarlet and Violet at all?
I saw my fiance play it, but I did not play it myself. I don't play video games anymore. I just don't have the attention span for them like I used to, but I love watching other people play them.
Yeah, I'm the same way, but like, I ended up getting us a Switch for Christmas, and I hadn't had a Switch. I just bought one like 5 years after it was released. And we were off that whole week of Christmas and New Year's, and I ended up we bought Scarlet and Violet, and I played it. And you know what? I mean, a lot of people talk about the IP in there, and I think that has a lot to do with it. I mean, I don't know how many kids to watch the show, but I know a ton of kids all play the game. And I'll tell you what, when Scarlet Violet Base came out, as much as everyone hates it, the pull, all that, there was something about playing the game, going through it, like, knowing the characters on the card again a lot more than I did with like Sun and Moon or Sword and Shield, right? I mean, I didn't really know a lot of but like going through the game, like, and like then seeing them on the cards, it definitely connected more to me than other sets have. And so I think the fact that like Pokemon still is such a strong IP and their games are still so popular, I think that does connect the kids to the cards more than just, kind of like a Beanie Baby where it's just something printed. So I think I don't know. I think it still has something to do with it.
Well, no, I agree with the fundamentals behind Pokemon being far stronger than Beanie Babies, but at the same time, they could have kept making those games and people could have not cared about them. We're talking about the multiverse where it wasn't crazy and popular for a long time. So I just think it's interesting. I agree with you. I don't think the Pokemon's going to go the same route as Beanie Babies. I think that there's a lot more fundamentals there. I actually think that because of the whole like generational, like the fact that kids and families and their families get into it together and it like crosses that generational line, I think that is an extremely strong market indicator for the future of Pokemon in that regard. Like Magic, unfortunately, only has that like time and place that it was. The fact that it was a good game for a short period of time. But I'll be honest, nobody even plays Magic anymore. Like I love the game and I haven't touched the game in years. And I'm an old school player. So like, the thing is, really, Magic doesn't have the IP behind it, which is what's going to hold it back. Whereas Pokemon has a strong IP, and like you said, a game that gets released every couple of years, and and plushies and merch, and literally the people at Pokemon, those guys, they knew what they were doing when they were designing this stuff, and like to the point, they made the same game in 2 different colors. Not because it was a different game, so that they could sell it twice. These people are thinking about money. They are thinking about how to get our money. So Pokemon, they know, and they're good at it, and it shows. So
collectors and speculators are the same thing. Change my mind.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, it's speculate. Like if you're speculating on something, I feel like you don't have to, but you should have some faith in it or some enjoyment of it, or there's got to be some little, you've got the devil and the angel on your shoulder, and if you're speculating in something, it's probably the devil who's whispering into your ear that something the market doesn't, and that's why you put that thing up in your closet. So you probably are a collector, most likely. And if you don't feel that way about something, if you don't feel like something that someone else doesn't about whatever stock, whatever Pokemon, whatever, investment that you're making, then why are you investing in it? Go find something you believe in. That's what I would say. Or maybe that's not good advice. Maybe you're supposed to invest in things you don't believe in. I don't know. Who knows? But I would think that you probably want to believe in something that you invest in.
And it actually leads us into one of the points I wanted to get to too, is we talked about it a little bit. So as far as making plays, what do you think about people overthinking plays in the hobby these days? And
it happens every day.
Yeah, I mean, because I just feel like everyone always, they see the play, they see the obvious play, the popular Pokemon, the Charizard, whatever it may be. Every statistic says that should be a good play, but people get in their heads that, oh, well, everyone sees this, so it's not going to work out there that way. So I'm going to stay out of this one. And sure enough, it does well. I mean, it's like Evolving Skies, right? It literally is like that. It's everyone was saying this is the best set ever. So many hits, the evolution. Everyone loved it, but people were like, oh no, I'm gonna wait on that. I'm gonna stay away. And what did it do? It skyrocketed. Everyone knew that was gonna. Everyone didn't know it was gonna go 400, but everyone knew that was gonna be one of the best performing sets in all of Sword and Shield. And
it's only obvious until it happens. It's only obvious until, or it's only not obvious until it happens, because then it happens, it's obvious. But
well, no, here, how about this one? Celebrations. That was obvious. It was obvious before it happened, and people still, they got, oh, it's too much supply, oh, this and that, they could reprint it, but it was pretty obvious that that set with the cards in it, with being an anniversary set, it's pretty obvious.
Obvious is not the right word I would use on that, because while I agree with you on celebrations being a obvious, it's an anniversary set, it's all nostalgia, it was all the things that you would think would make it go up. There is a long time during and after celebrations being printed where the market really didn't want celebrations anymore. The singles weren't worth anything, you know, that literally no, you didn't have Dan, you know, talking about how buying out the celebrations Charizard and PSA 10 is a way to make quick money and breaking the internet with that. Like literally nobody cared about celebrations because it was the flavor of the week 2 weeks ago. And so, like, you had to go through that for a long time. You remember, that's when you bought all your celebrations UPCs. You were screaming at the top of your lungs. I was doing it too. $175 celebrations UPCs. You guys were buying these at $300. What's going on here? And like, for how long? It was probably 3 months, 4 months where you could do that for, to the point where people stopped talking about it. And it wasn't an obvious play until 6 months later, you came marching back to YouTube and you're like, hey, check out these celebrations UPCs. Remember when these were $175? Because I do. And the whole people were like, oh, no way. Those are $300. You weren't saying that. And you're like, I got the receipts. Well, to be honest, it was an obvious play, but people don't have thousands of dollars to sit and wait for 6 months to a year for the obvious play to slowly creep up into what is then the obvious play before the YouTuber makes the big video about it. So like the people who did that, they had so much capital, they had so much money, they just didn't care about selling into, they knew, yeah, it was obvious because they had $100,000 to dump into celebrations, and if it goes down, who cares? You know, it is what it is. So
do you think Evolutions was obvious?
Evolutions was $90, $88, $87, whatever you could, the cheapest.
Obvious play, right?
For 5 years. I remember PokeRev on his chats that you would have on Saturdays when you would search eBay. Every single Saturday, people would ask in those chats, what's the best set to invest in Pokemon right now? Every single time, without fail, he would say, Evolutions. It's $80-something a box. You get the base set experience. It's cheap. You get Charizard, you know, blah, blah, blah. He would give all the things at Evolution. Everyone knows about it. And people would just say, okay, what else is there good to invest in right now? We haven't seen Evolutions move, and nobody cared about Evolutions until $300 a box happens. And then the only thing people cared about Evolutions were, oh, there's no way that $300 a box is worth it. That is silly. That is a bubble. And then 350, 400, 500, 700, 1,000 happened. And now where are we at? Like back down to 600, 700 is where they're comfortably sitting at. Sure, it's not 1,000 anymore, but it certainly isn't 300 anymore. And like you hear the same thing. It's an obvious play. It's an obvious play. You know what?
All right. What about like Shining Legends? Don't you think that was an obvious play?
No, Shining Legends wasn't an obvious play. That one, nobody talked about it for so long. Nobody cared about it. I just told you how we'd go into the store and we'd be looking for Hidden Fates, and we'd literally see those Raichu GX boxes, and then the Burning Shadows, you know, ETBs discounted, and then the Tag GX boxes with the Mewtwo and Mew that everybody wants now. Nobody wanted that stuff then. And I'll tell you, nobody wanted it for like 5 years. Those were like $20 until, oh, wait, they're not, until they're not. And then when it isn't $20 anymore, that's when everyone decides to move in. And that's when everyone gets wrecked. And the next obvious play is going to be, by the way, Hidden Fates. Obviously, Hidden Fates has sat for $150 in ETB for literally like 2 years now, 3 years almost. And if somebody thinks that set isn't going to be an obvious, quote unquote, oh, it's so obvious until it's not, then I have 0 Hidden Fates ETBs too, by the way. So like I've sold them all because I'm tired of waiting. I was tired. I had Hidden Fates ETBs since like 2019, and I bought and sold them all the way up from like when they were $120 to down all the way up to like $250, you know? So I'm just tired of waiting anymore. So I don't have any more. But you know who, the person who has a bunch of those, eventually when they rise, they're not tired of waiting because they're going to go to 300 eventually. And that's an quote unquote obvious play. And I know it's obvious. You know, it's obvious. Everyone knows it's obvious, but nobody wants obvious plays because obvious plays, they don't, they're not sexy, they're not exciting.
I mean, I guess I see what you're saying, like that the market, the eyes weren't on it, like they were saying stagnant, but like, so in your mind, like if you were to look at like, the products, if you were like look at XY, you wouldn't think that like Evolution is one of the obvious sets in that was going to rise over time.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's what everyone was saying, quote unquote, was obvious, but it wasn't obvious because it was only obvious when it happened. Like nobody was like, the only person who was saying that, like I said, was PokeRev, and he was just kind of saying it casually to people, like, "Hey, if I want to throw $100 at a set, what should I use?" Like, "Oh, Evolutions." It's the no brainer because I think at that time there was more expensive. There were many more expensive modern sets, but Evolutions was cheap and it was old. And so, but I don't think it was obvious by any means, because if it was so obvious, we would all, I know you cashed in heavily on it, but I didn't. And I was in the hobby.
Yeah. A lot of people, I guess what I'm getting at, it's not like to talk about cashing in or anything. It's just what I'm getting at is like the sets that I bought the most of, Revolutions, Shining Legends, and I guess Generations. I had like
sets were deemed as nobody wanted those sets for so long. They sat
right, literally. But what I mean though is like it's just like just the looking at them. It's like, okay, Shining Legends. There hasn't been Shining cards since all the way back in Neo. This is something that no other set has. It's not like every set has a rainbows in Sun and Moon. Every set had full arts and secret. It was like something that nothing else had. Like Evolutions, it was a reprint of base set, and like every other reprint had done good over time. And then like Flashfire, like with all the Charizards. I mean, it was obvious.
It didn't have a rainbow rare, Alex. That's what I mean. You said it yourself. It literally had nothing that people wanted in it. People were chasing at that time the Burning Shadows Charizard, the full art Hidden Fates shiny Charizard. Literally, those were the things people wanted. The rainbow rares. Do you hear anyone say they want rainbow rares? That's how like the hobby changes. So like at the time, it wasn't obvious like it is now, but it's just everything's hindsight 2020. You know what I mean?
I guess. I mean, I'll be honest. Yeah, Burning Shadows was one that I went in really heavy too, and I did good because everything went up, but it wasn't one of the top performers in Sun and Moon. I could have did a lot better in other things. But
don't you think Evolutions was boring to rip? How much did you rip of it? Like literally, my fiance and I got so tired of getting Evolutions in 10s. We would sigh when we get an Evolutions in a 10. You know,
dude, if I showed you my PSA log, I mean, I probably graded 30 or 40 of those Charizards. I ripped more Evolutions than anything else I've ever ripped in this hobby.
Okay, so for me,
I love the set. I guess I was one of those. I was one of those weirdos that actually loved it and believed in it. And I'd watch people like Jake and other people just dog on it and hate on it. I loved that set. I mean,
so that makes sense to me why you feel the way you do about it. You were really right on. You were spot on about that in so many ways that I will admit to just being straight up wrong. But all the things that you just said that were like pluses for Evolutions at the time were actually negatives for it. Like I didn't want to rip an Evolutions booster box. I would have rather ripped a Rebel Clash booster box to try to get the full art Giovanni than an Evolutions booster box to try to get the Charizard, because like it was nothing. Nobody cared about it. It was all these reprint. To me, Evolutions feels like a cheap base set reprint. And I come from a time where I got real base set. So when I opened Evolutions, it felt like a cheap knockoff. The print quality was awful. The holo pattern was shitty. I didn't like the garbage color, the scheme of color that was on the cards. It felt wrong. And it just felt like I wanted to rip base set. So like to me, I got the opposite reaction that maybe some people get from Evolutions.
Well, what about Shining Legends? What about Shining Legends?
Boring set, dude. It's so boring. The only thing you could possibly get was the Mewtwo. Like literally the Mewtwo and the shine, and then that rainbow rare Mewtwo. And I've never pulled it either. We've opened so much Shining Legends and never pulled that Mewtwo that I'm like, I believe it's a myth. So I understand why it's so expensive, because it's hard to pull. But that was the only card that I wanted in the set. Like you could buy all the other baby shinies, like the Rayquaza was like $10. That was the most expensive one. The Mew was like $15 maybe. And it wasn't exciting. Like literally there wasn't anything exciting about it. I don't know. Maybe I was jaded coming back into the hobby. I really like the flashy full arts. I like the rainbow rares. But like the Burning Shadows Charizard and the Hidden Fates Charizard were the two height of the hobby things when I got back in. And maybe that's why I have some of the beliefs I have about things like Hidden Fates, Sun and Moon, tag teams, like that Rainbow Rare Burning Shadows Charizard I still put on a pedestal, even though nobody cares about it. Like, there's a lot
people
of things.
care. It's still selling regularly at like, I mean, thousands of dollars.
But my point is, all those sets, though, at the time, nobody cared about them when they were a dime a dozen sitting on the shelf. Like, we only wanted Hidden Fates.
Yeah, I mean, that's why I was trying to get out of that. Like, I get no one cared about them. That's why they became good. But I mean, I guess I was just saying, like, you don't see anything right now where it's like obvious plays that like this is gonna be worth more in the future. You don't think there's like obvious things happening?
I mean, I just don't think that any of this stuff is like quote unquote obvious, because when you're in the moment, the quote unquote obvious doesn't feel so obvious. So like Evolving Skies at $400 right now feels anything but obvious. You know what I mean? But I could be wrong. It could be $1,000 in 2 weeks from now, and that would have been an obvious play. But it doesn't feel obvious right now. But in 2 months, when it's $1,000, sure, then it'll feel obvious. So I don't know. Like, would it feel obvious at $100 right now when I knew in my head it could be $400 because that's what the world we're living in? Duh, obviously. But that's not the world we're in. It's $400 right now. So, like, I don't know. Tell me an obvious play right now. Okay, I'll tell you. I'll go first. To me, an obvious play is the Charizard UPCs that just came out. That's been an obvious play for 6 months since they've been like $85, $90. You know, ever since they were $100 even. I feel like they were obvious. And now that they're like $75, nobody can talk. I can sit here all day long and say the Charizard UPC is obvious. You know what people in the chat are going to tell me? Yeah, but those were overprinted. They printed those a lot and, you know, blah, 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 blah. You know what? Get wrecked. That's an obvious play and you know it. And in 6 months from now, when Nostalgianomics takes a few months off from YouTube and comes marching back with his, hey, everyone, I bought all these at $75 and now they're $200. Guess what? You're all going to be in this comment saying, no, you didn't. You're a liar. You bought them at $200 and you're just saying that to pump the market. Like, I can already see the comments now. So, like, get out of here with that crap. Because, like, that's the only quote-unquote obvious play. But
yeah, I say at the current price point, that's obvious.
What else is obvious, you know?
I mean, off the top of my head, I mean, right this very second. Yeah, I right this very second, I don't know, 151 could be, but like, you know, the total Chilling Reign Fusion Strike thing was obvious.
What do you mean obvious? Rudy bought so much of that stuff at like literally pennies on the dollar. And all that,
man, it doesn't matter. It doesn't take away from the fact that it was an obvious play at $80. I mean, anyone who wants to invest in Pokemon or has, like, that was an obvious play.
When that was $80, Evolving Skies was $100. What was the more obvious play?
Well, you mean what was the better play?
No. What was the more obvious play? Because we know what the better play was, but at that time, when you could get an Evolving Skies booster box that just got reprinted down to $100 for that, and you could at the same time buy Chilling Reign for $77. That was when PK made his famous, I walked through the valley of the $77 booster box or whatever, and fear no, whatever the crap he said. Like, that is where we were at that time. And what was a more obvious play? Well, the man who knows more than all of us, he didn't put $3 million into Evolving Skies. He put $3 million into Chilling Reign. Now, Rudy doesn't know Pokemon, so everyone's going to say, oh, well, Rudy's a Magic guy. If he knew Pokemon, he would have done Evolving Skies. Once again, get wrecked, chat. No, he didn't. No, you didn't. Nobody put $3 million into Evolving Skies right then. And if they did, they're literally in Dubai right now. So I just disagree with that whole, like, it's obvious, because it's not until it is, you know?
I think it's hard to compare, like, how well one investment did compared to another. I mean, that's not really as much as like the obvious I'm talking about. Obvious is like, it's obvious that there's money to be made, like that these are going to recover to a certain level, that there's money there. They're not going to go much lower, you know, as far as like knowing the one that's going to take off the most. What's
The
that?
question is how much money though, because there's always money somewhere. But like
Here, perfect example. Perfect example. So I was pretty heavy in Burning Shadows booster boxes when I was in Burning Shadows. For me, it was an obvious play. That Charizard was going to be a pillar of the hobby. Like everyone, a lot of people were going to want that Rainbow Charizard. Were they anywhere near the highest performer in Sun and Moon? No, but I still hold true that was an obvious play.
But you could have done better putting your money somewhere else, right?
Absolutely, so, absolutely. But what I mean is, like, it was an obvious play to put money there instead of hold it in a savings account, I guess is my point.
And I guess I would agree with that. There are a lot of things in Pokemon that did pretty well, but I think that like a quote unquote obvious play is one that's clearly better than all the rest and turns out to be. And I argue that in this time, there is not a clear play that is like, so do I think the Unagabas are going to be better in, like, if you had $10,000 and you could dump $10,000 in either the Unagabas or the whatever the Charizard UPCs, like, you have to make a decision. You can't choose both to split the whatever it is. Like, that's which one's the obvious one? Like, a lot of people would say, well, what's the price point? That's what matters about, like, you know, what makes it an obvious or whatever is a price point. But supposing you get them both at a point that you feel is a good price, like what you think you have margin to make, like, what's the better choice? What's the more obvious play? I would argue, but neither of them are obvious. I would argue that they both will most likely turn out in some way that's probably beneficial if Pokemon keeps growing. But I definitely think that neither of them are obvious right now. I think to say it's obvious is like a misrepresentation, and it's saying like that you have a crystal ball and that, like, I don't know. I just probably wouldn't say that exact word. You know what I mean?
John thinks we're fighting.
No, this is good. We're having a great conversation. I think John's just poking us a little bit, which I like it. It's I mean, honestly, to be fair, I live for these types of discussions because, like, you don't get anywhere having talks and just agreeing on everything. And I actually don't think we're disagreeing a lot. I actually think we're agreeing more than we're disagreeing on a lot of things. I wish we were disagreeing a little bit more on some things because I think it would make for great, like, but I can't sit here and pretend like I feel a certain way about things.
All right, let's disagree here. Let's go modern versus vintage. Paywalls or no paywalls?
Dude, yeah. I mean, these are all things that literally the hobby loves to talk about, but I literally have zero opinion on because it's like, it's such arbitrary, right? Like, I'm just all about enjoying Pokemon, right? I feel thankful that I can do this since I was like, I've been in the hobby since I was a little 8-year-old on the playground. Literally, Pokemon taught me how to hustle. Like, I was poor growing up. A lot of people can probably, like, you know, they can understand or empathize. Like, I didn't have a lot of money growing up. So, like, to get the cards that I wanted, to build the decks that I wanted to play, I had to learn how to trade. And a lot of that is like hustling. So like Pokemon is the reason why I feel like I know how to sell anything because I always had to work for everything that I got. So like, I'm so thankful to be able to do this in the hobby that I love, that I've been enjoying since I was 8 years old. So like, these conversations are great, man. So like, I love it when I disagree with people, especially when we're talking about Pokemon, just because it's so fun to hear the, you know, the different perspectives. Like, I literally grew up in a card shop. I was a local game store, you know, brat. That's when I would move. My parents were divorced, so like we would move around to different cities once in a while. Like when one of them would move, when I would go to visit them, they'd be in a new city. I wouldn't have a lot of friends there. The way I would make friends is I'd go to a local game store, and you automatically have a huge group of people who like the same things you like that you can trade with. And I would just bring my binder up to someone, and I'd be like, "Hey, you want to trade?" And that is a instant like door, like a foot in the door to being friends with a new person. So like Pokemon is, I think, beneficial in a lot of ways. And so like, yeah, I love having these little tiffs and arguments about the hobby that we love. And like, That's why I get so passionate about talking about like Whatnot. And when I see people scamming people in the hobby, it literally it evokes emotion in me, because I want people to be in this hobby for the long term, because it benefits both me, because that's more people I get to interact with, but it also benefits my business in the long term. And it's just something that's like, it's been meaningful to me my whole life. So like, it's important. So that's, if people ever see me getting passionate in my podcasts, or, you know, and when I'm talking to people, it comes from that, you know.
It's always welcome on my channel, by the way.
Oh
There's
yeah.
no feelings hurt on this channel.
That's what I always appreciate about your channel, man. You'll really have a good conversation with no holds barred, and you're willing to have those talks, and I appreciate that, you know, because I mean, we're just talking Pokemon cards here, so we gotta have
Absolutely. 100%, man. Hey, anyone who wants to answer any questions, leave them in the chat and we'll get to them. But before we do that, so Josh, I always ask anyone who's, you know, doing this full time, what do you think about doing this full time? For anyone out there who's on the fence, who kind of flips on the side, if they're wanting to try to do this as a business, what are kind of do's and don'ts? Do you think it's possible? Do you think like what you do is kind of, you know, in a niche where maybe people couldn't do it? I mean, what do you think the possibilities are of taking their Pokemon flipping business full time?
Listen, I think that to be overly positive and not to be like, you know, too corny.
Well,
But I
no, be
think
real. Be real with it.
yeah, no, but this is real. I mean, I think if you put your mind to it, anything is really possible. Do I think though that starting a Pokemon business in today's market and environment is a good idea, or maybe a profitable idea, or something that I would recommend to other people? I would say that yes, cautiously. I personally got back into Pokemon because sort of a time situation, perfect timing, perfect storm situation. During that time, I also was fortunate to be able to get in on the ground level of a very new app, Whatnot, that ended up blowing up really big. And I left the app with like 12,000 or 13,000 followers. I'm down like 12,000 something now, but I left the app with a lot of followers on there, and that was from a lot of grinding. So like, it wasn't on accident. And you heard my story about how I've been doing this stuff since I was 8 years old. Like, I live, breathe, eat, and sleep cardboard. That's why my podcast is called Cardboard Hands, because at this point, my hands probably are cardboard because of how much I deal with it. But that being said, I personally fell into this because of a perfect storm, my personal experiences in my life, and the little bit of crazy that I have that's here that not everyone I think has. You have to be a little bit crazy to sell Pokemon cards for a living. I mean, I'm just going to go out there and say it. If you have all those things and you're willing to jump in and do it, I don't recommend anyone quit their job and go full-time into Pokemon. Like when I did that, I had a level 4 TCG Player seller account. I had distribution. I had streamers I was selling to on the side. I had been doing it full-time, but getting a paycheck while working at my winery during the pandemic, during the unemployment of COVID. So I had a lot of help during that time that people now wouldn't have. So like, you have to take that in with a grain of salt when you're looking at me and trying to compare yourself and say, oh, that guy did it, I should be able to do it. And it's like, I think that anyone can do it. Yes. And I think there's lots of opportunity, but like, I think it's important to do it intelligently. I think it's important to set yourself up for success, to maybe sell a couple of cards before you decide to go full-time in Pokemon. Don't just go full collector boy and say, you know what, I just tallied up, I inventoried my collection and it's worth $1 million, but I've never sold $1 of it, but I have enough, I know I can live off $1 million. Don't do that. You need to start selling a few first so you know how to do it, so you understand that it's probably not actually worth $1 million. But you know, it's one of those things that I do want to give a positive and a very like encouraging message to people who want to start their own Pokemon card business or side hustle. I recommend first though making it a side hustle and essentially doing it on the side. And then once you find you're at the point, if you find you're ever at the point where you're making a decision where you're like, if I start going back to work, it will make it so I will make less money and lose out opportunity on my side hustle. That's when you can start making that mental decision and mental math and thinking if you want to make the leap of like, well, maybe I should start making the side hustle a real hustle and like a business. And so like, and then you take that leap and you may decide that it's not for you once you take that leap. And I hope that you have other backup plans, because that's a very real thing too. Like, you know, you don't always succeed, and that's okay too. But to answer your question, do I think that it's possible and would I recommend it? Possibly. I think it's possible, and I would recommend it to someone as long as you kind of knew what you're getting yourself into. And if you're asking that question in a live chat, and it's not just a troll question, or if it's like, if you're asking because for the sake of like good conversation, that's awesome. But like, if you're really sitting here having that conversation with yourself and you've never sold a card or you've never really done it, you should probably think about trying that first. That would be my real advice to you. But I do think that Pokemon's stronger now than it's ever been. I think there are more people in the hobby now than we've ever had. That shows with how many cards were printed and how much is getting bought. And I think there's lots of opportunity. So I hope that wasn't too long-winded, but that would probably be my answer to you. And, you know, it's one of those things that you can't ever tell someone what to do, but I just hope that I don't give someone bad advice. That's all I hope for. So, you know.
Yeah, and I've been asked to do it a bunch of times. I am gonna do a whole video dedicated to like selling and that whole ins and outs, because you're right. The selling aspect, it's one people don't think about a lot. And one, either if you have like a spouse, you know, who has, you know, a steady income, has like benefits and stuff, that's a big thing. Two, just know that unless you're already in the process, you already got, you know, PSA submissions or CCG submissions rolling, and you've already got stuff listed, you're already kind of like, you already have things moving. That's a lot different than starting from scratch, because if you're starting from scratch, one, you're putting forth a lot of capital where you're not going to see returns on that for a while. If it's raw cards, those are going to be bought. They're going to take a while to get to you. You have to make the submissions, send them PSA. It takes a while for them to even get them. Then, you know, it takes whatever, a month, 2 months, whatever it takes now. And then you have to get them back. When you list them, are you going to throw them at auction? If you do that, you're definitely going to usually take less. If not, you're going to list them at buy it now or best offer. It's going to take time for those to sell through. You're going to have people that cancel orders or this or that or whatever. And it just takes time to recoup that money, realize the profits, roll it back in. And you need to make sure you're well capitalized. You have your living expenses at least covered for a while, because it's going to take time for that money to start rolling in and you to realize the gains, take the money out of the business and use it for your expenses, because you're going to need a lot of capital to stay in the business at all times to make plays and make deals and pay for the submissions, pay for the cards. And so, yeah, it's definitely something you don't want to do lightly. I would say always do it part-time. Make sure you like it. Make sure you save up enough money to be able to afford to, you know, suffer through the hard times and go from there.
Okay, let me ask you this, chat. Are you bullish enough to submit trainer cards to PSA to grade? Because if you're not, you might not have what it takes to be full-time in this.
What is the play there?
PSA 10. That's literally all there is. It's a PSA 10. It, you know, make $5-10 on a PSA 10. And so if that's not sexy to you, if that's not something that you think you have the stomach for, it's not all selling $1,000, you know, low population WotC vintage cards, you know.
No, you are wrong. That is what it is.
It's a lot of grinding. So like if making $5-10 on grading a card like is not something that you are okay with doing, then keep working at Wendy's, because you're
well, hey man, on the flip side of that, if you've already started a Pokemon business, how do you get out?
This is one of the best types of questions, you know. This is what I was talking about earlier, Walrus. There is no getting out. once you're in, it's like the mafia. You can't get out. You're in it for life. Rudy talks about it on his channel. Like it keeps dragging you back. You think you're out of Pokemon 10 years from now, 15 years from now. You have your first kid. That little kid comes home from school. He's got a backpack full of these dumb little monsters that you never seen of. One is it's a cardboard box monster. You're like, this is stupid. What is this, a new MetaZoo? Like, no, it's a new generation of Pokemon, Dad. And you're dragged back into it 15 years later. So to be honest,
you get so used to that hustler money, you forget how 9 to 5 work.
Yeah, no, you can't get out, Mr. Walrus. You're stuck. Especially, we wouldn't be able to make it without your comments in the lives. Like, without the Mr. Walrus, comments, I don't know if I would be able to go on anymore.
We're gonna get him on alive eventually. I've been trying to, but our schedules never quite work out.
Go catch him over at the Pokeflips podcast. He was on there one time. That was his YouTube debut. So if anyone wants to go see Mr. Walrus in his natural element, you can see him there.
So that's what's paying the bills nowadays, though, huh?
Yeah, I do a lot of flipping. I'm a big flipper. Where I was an evil pack breaker, scalper, or whatnot, or whatever buzzword of the week that you want to use. I have now become an evil PSA grader where I will buy collections, grade the good cards, sell the raws, and then, get rid of the rest. So that's
the other thing that happens when you get into grading, like, I mean, my wife joke about this, like you'll start seeing everything in condition. You'll be like, you'll get your box of macaroni and cheese and be like, oh yeah, this looks good. This could grade 10. I should send this into PSA.
Yeah, or like in our house is whenever something drops up, that's PSA 9, PSA 8,
Or like when you open up like the 8-pack of tuna, you're just like, I don't know if I want to rip the sealed case.
It's a perfect, sealed still, in the apocalypse they'll go for a premium versus
I gotta keep the condition right. Yep.
Yeah, because like if you think about it, if you're in the apocalypse, the zombie apocalypse, what do you want? One random tuna that could have been like buried in a pile of poo, or a sealed clean case of tuna? You want that sealed case, okay? Trust me.
Ian says, what do you guys do with your bulk? You want to go first?
Yeah, so that's a funny question, Ian. I just started selling bulk when I switched off of Whatnot. I needed something to do with my time. I was spending like 40 hours a week streaming, and so like while I'm watching Netflix, TV, like I don't want to just waste away. So like I need something to do with that extra time while I was hanging out with my family, and I still wanted to feel like I was working. So I started getting into my bulk for the first time in years and going through and listing it. And honestly, bulk is the untold secret. It's not a secret. Nobody is going to want to do the work to actually make money with bulk. And that's the secret about bulk. The best thing about bulk is it's there. It's literally there for anyone who wants it. All you have to do is go buy the 5,000, one of these 5,000 count boxes of bulk from anyone. Literally, people are begging to sell that stuff on Facebook. Put in the few hours it takes to sort it out, list it on your TCG player, and over the course of like a couple of months, it will rake in so much extra income. Like, I hit $10 a day pretty easily and I have like 5,000 cards in my inventory. So like, and that's just literally trash, just cards that you would have considered trash that you would have wanted to give away or sell at a loss or whatever. And like, and it's so rewarding to actually understand where the cards are going. Like, to understand that like when I sell a PSA 10, I don't know if that PSA 10 is going to a collector, to someone who's going to go sell it on Whatnot, to someone for more, or a flipper, or someone who's literally just going to take it and throw it in their closet, or what? Who knows what's going to happen with that PSA 10? When someone buys a 30-cent Irida from me for a trainer, a non-hollow trainer, uncommon from whatever set, Astro Radiance or whatever it is, I know exactly what they're doing with it. They're putting it in their deck. They're going to play with it in a tournament, and they're going to use it, and then they're going to need more the next set that comes out. So like, it's not sexy. It's not like attractive because it's like 30-cent cards. $1 maybe is a good bulk card is worth $1, but it's definitely, I'll be damned if it isn't a gold mine for anyone who's willing to put in the actual work and actually sort it and list it. because
So will you sell the 1 and 2 cent cards?
No. So what you'll do is very quickly you'll realize when you start listing and sorting your bulk, it doesn't take very long to realize what's worth it and what's not worth it to actually list.
So
And
where do you draw the line?
I list nothing under 20 cents. So 20 cents for me, a card, is where I draw the line. But I was down to 15 cents for a while because I wanted to be competitive. Now that I have a large inventory, 5,000 plus cards, though, I don't have to be as competitive because, I mean, it's all theory. Like, if you're going to a store to buy something, if that store has everything you need all in one place, you're more likely to pay like 2, 3, 4 cents more just to get what you need from one source because you don't have to pay shipping then many. And like, so
Always.
it happens. Yeah, so that's why having a large bulk inventory, it grows and compounds on itself. And I'm not spilling anyone's play because nobody wants to do the work because it's literally hours of just sorting. So,
And then what you do? Was it like 99 cents for shipping? And if you buy a certain amount, it's free shipping. So you're always at least making $1.20 or $1.30.
Yeah, so the way TCG works is if it's under $5, it's 99 cents for shipping, and if it's over $5, then it's just
So $1.20. You got your 60-cent stamp, or if you get your stamps cheaper, envelope and some. So what do you make? Maybe like 50 cents or something on a card.
So like when it comes down to it, I've gotten my price of envelopes and packing materials down to about, with the stamp included, about 67 cents. So with the top loader, the team bag, the paper, the envelope, the stamp, and I have one of those stamp things you stamp the address on so it doesn't cost like anything. And it's quick, so it costs.
And the fees are what, like 13 cents or something?
Fees are 30 cents. So between the cost and the shipping fee of 99 cents, it makes up all the fees, besides the 10% fee they charge. And so the rest is profit. I will tell you, I had 10 orders today, and only 2 of them had free shipping that were qualified for free shipping. The rest all paid 99 cents. They were just under like $3, $4. And so you still end up making a little bit more on those too, because you're making 30 cents or whatever it is extra on that. And you're getting more sales. So like, it's not sexy. It's certainly not sexy. And it's not something that anyone's probably going to do unless you have a lot of time. But it's very rewarding to me as a seller for it, because like I said, I know where it's going to. I used to be a card player myself. So like, I appreciate competitive players. So like, I understand that more than I understand grading, and it feels better at the very least than grading. Do I make better profits grading? Oh, hell yes. Like I'll grade a $10 card and sell it for $100 maybe. And, it costs $15 to grade. So like, obviously that's a much better profit margin, but like, what happens when you get a 9 on that card? Then that profit spread of margin, it's a lot less. And whereas with bulk, it's like steady. So like, anyone who does have a lot of bulk, and if you don't have a TCG Player account, this is literally me. TCG Player, pay me, because I've literally been shilling TCG Player. Every single person in here, if you don't have a TCG Player account, or if you haven't at least thought about starting a seller account, it's completely free, and you can use the money you make. You can use it to buy more cards. So like, you can just keep it on the website, anything you sell, and put it into your collection again. Go make a TCG Player account, please. Do it for me.
Imposter about said, but does the bulk have to be in rotation? No, it doesn't have to be in rotation.
No, not at all.
Also, guys, what I do, because I don't sell bulk, but I don't really want to. I don't know. There's gonna be thousands of people that watch this eventually, so I don't know if I want to I don't know how big the site is, but I always say go check sites. I don't want to name the site I use, but go check sites on their buy lists, because there's sites that will buy literally. They don't buy every single card, but especially like rares, reverse hollows, hollow rares, sometimes the buy list. I mean, sometimes the buy list on some of these sites, because they're not updated perfectly, you can actually get a better buy than what TCG Player's near mint prices sometimes. It's how crazy it gets. And so I would definitely check buy lists, because if you got a bunch of bulk, sort out the good ones. And I mean, I've had bulk orders that I've sent to the site, and I've made over $100 on just from selling bulk. And so
Yeah.
that's what I always say too, is just check buy lists on some of the bigger stores.
So like think of it this way, chat. Like if you buy a it's like $15 for 1,000 cards. So if you buy 1,000 cards for $15, if you find VIP battle pass is like $1.50. That's like an uncommon from Fusion Strike. Switch cart is $1. There's literally a bunch of trainers that are like $1, $1.50. You don't have to find that many of those cards. The Holo Cresselia from Fusion Strike is $4. A regular Holo sells for more than most full arts from the set. So like there are cards in these sets that are just sitting in bulk that you can easily recoup your value back. And then you have all that extra that you'll find more of that will over time, it will eventually pay. So like, that's the thing. Like a lot of people, they really just want that quick, easy $1,000 flip. Like obviously if I can pay $1,000 and make $2,000 and do it in 1 minute, I'm going to do that every time. But like,
what's the easiest way to become a millionaire? You buy something for 10 million and sell it for 11. Obviously.
Yeah, obvious, but like not everyone. That's not the
play. That's the obvious play you were looking for.
Yeah, that's an obvious, but it's like you gotta think a little bit more outside the box. You know, it's not there's spreads you gotta make. So,
B Alexander 2. All right, how long to hold Celebrations UPC? So that really depends on how many you have. Me, I sold a good portion of my UPCs already. And what I have left, I'm holding into, eternity pretty much, unless it like goes to some crazy number. But yeah, I'm holding. I mean, it just depends on what you do with the money. Like, do you need the money? If you're going to sell those, where are you going to put it that you think it's going to do better than those? Because I really don't know. Like, I just wanted to get out, all the money that I had in them. So I sold enough to recoup all my money and make a little profit, and I'm keeping what I have left. But, if you just have one, and it's in your collection, I think it could happen, but it's pretty unlikely that they're going to be like cheaper a year from now. But does that mean that they're going to be way more expensive? I mean, I'm not going to say that, but I mean, I find it very hard to believe they're going to be $300 again, is what I'm trying to say. So, but if it's like a collection piece, I would probably hold on to it. If it's like something you have like, 4, 8, 12 of, yeah, I mean, it might be a good time to sell some. What do you think?
That's always the question. It's like, do you need the money? Like, what's the idea? Are you going to put it into something else? Are you less bullish on the Celebration Charizard and more bullish on the new UPC, the alternate art Charizard? Like, because for one Celebrations UPC, you could have a case and then some, probably a case plus one. So you could have a sealed case for your shelf and one for display, for the cost of one single Celebrations UPC. So like, I guess the question is, what do you like more? And that's always a question. That's sort of been a lot of the theme of tonight, is like liquidity and capital. And like a lot of what I think holds the hobby back is not having enough capital to just literally forget about something. Because like for me to be able to literally, I wish I could throw $10,000 at the Charizard UPC and literally just not have to, and like, if it wouldn't affect my business, if I could just throw $10,000 at it and I could still have $10,000 to use in my business to buy collections and flip and do all that, I would love to put it into the Charizard. Because that's,
that's what Dan did, right?
I mean, yeah, but the man's he's literally made of cash. So that's different. So it's a little bit different there. Don't compare me to Dan. I don't, I'm not living in a mansion and flipping trophy cards and, driving a new lawnmower every day, or, whatever it is.
Hey, actually, speaking of trophy cards, brings us to our next question, flip to flip. Do you value low pop plays, staff, vintage, championship card promos, Japanese, even if they are not profitable for now, knowing they can boom after? So you're talking more of like an investment play. That's like a speculation. I mean, Josh, I'm not going to speak for you, but I mean, I think what you do is more of going to be, finding plays to make money on now. So as far as like investing in that stuff, like speculating on for the long term, it's all supply and demand. I mean, they're obviously always have super low pops, but a lot of those, like, championship card, world promos, you know, Japanese promos are still worth less than a PSA 9 base set Charizard, which has 17,000 graded. And so it just always goes to supply and demand. You know, if you think there's going to be enough demand out there for some of those cards, it might make sense. I'm just not that guy. Like if you're looking for me to give you the go ahead, the green light on those types of things, I'm just not super bullish on the real like niche stuff. I know the pops are really low, but the demand is really low. I mean, 99, maybe 95% of the whole community don't even know some of those cards exist, don't have any connection to them. That's kind of why I'm not like super bullish on it.
I have some sub pop 10 cards that I just haven't even listed on my eBay because it's just like, what's even the point? Like, people don't even know they exist. You know, some of the mid-era pop 10, like, or whatever, pop 9, pop 7, like. And on the other hand, I have sold a Soul Rock for, I think it was like $1,100. I sold a hollowed PSA 10 Sandstorm Soul Rock for because it was a pop 7. So, like, on one hand, I personally don't value low pop, but on the other hand, I do understand that sometimes it really does matter. So it really depends on the individual card. Honestly, the last guest you had, Radar, on your podcast would have been a great person to ask this to because, like, I literally saw that guy put, like, hundreds of thousands of dollars into trophy cards and flip them for more. And I also saw him put hundreds of thousands into trophy cards and flip them for less. So he would have probably been a much better person to talk about because he's both won big and lost big on those trophy cards. And he would probably much be better to talk about it than me. I personally don't have the risk tolerance or the capital to sink that kind of money into, like, unless we're talking about like the sub $1,000 trophy cards, then sure, I can play ball. But like when we're starting to get into like cards that are worth thousands of dollars, like, my comfort level just isn't really there. I personally am not comfortable owning any card that's worth like even worth more than $1,000. I get pretty uncomfortable owning it. Like,
well, what about
product's another thing?
All right, well, what about like Worlds promos?
Yeah, I think I personally I would be a seller at that, not a buyer, because I would feel very uncomfortable at a lot of the prices that they've gotten to. I know that a lot of people like that stuff, though. It's really cool artwork. It's got some fundamentals in that it's like they're more rare than set cards. But they've also gotten pumped to oblivion by a lot of YouTube channels that basically just say that that's like the best investment to make because they're trophy cards. Like, I'll be honest with you guys, I never heard the term trophy card before 2020, 2021. And I certainly never heard someone call a Pokemon a rookie card. I certainly never heard that before 2020 or 2021. So like, these are terms that are like around now that I think and grading for me, I've been in this hobby since I was 8 years old. Grading is so weird to me because even though it's been around, it hasn't been prevalent in the Pokemon hobby until, you know, whatever, 2018, 2019, when you started seeing all those crazy modern cards. And because like Gary was grading the CD promos and so was Ken Golden. And, you know, those are getting graded out by the old timers in the hobby, but it wasn't like the big hot thing like it is now. So it's very different. The mentality has changed. And that's not to say that the mentality won't change again. So like, you know.
Yeah, I mean, it's gonna become like a meme on my channel because I mean, I was gonna say it right here, but then the next thing is question: do you think Crown Zenith is the obvious play? I was gonna say that with that last one. Like, I'd still kind of gear towards going more of the obvious plays, like more of the popular cards that you can make guaranteed margins on instead of, you know, going for these home runs. Like, hey, there are cards right now that are going to be home runs, I'm sure, in 3 to 5 years. I'm sure there are. And we're all going to be looking back and you could have made 10x on that. But the thing is, it's like, how many obvious plays where you could have made, you know, 50% on, you know, 100 times in the next 5 years? That's what I'm thinking. If you're really looking to like play the single game and try to make margins and speculate, I mean, I think there's just a lot of plays out there. And I mean, I get chasing the rarity, but yeah, you're kind of just playing boom or bust with that, right? Boom or bust.
And there are different kinds of rarity too. There's like There's condition rarity, which is something that a lot of people are really into, and especially people who like modern, they really like condition rarity, which is why we're seeing the black label thing pop off so much now. It's like, if you're a modern collector, if there are 6,000 Umbreon VMAX Umbreon alternate arts, and you want to flex on someone, how can you bring out your Umbreon VMAX when everyone in the room has one as a PSA 10? You kind of have to have that next level up. So you go for the BGS 10, right? The black label or whatever. So like, I get condition rarity in like that flex culture thing. It's not necessarily for me. It's not my game, but I can understand it. And the same thing goes in like condition rarity for older cards. Like older cards, their base set, for example, Chansey or whatever the low population base set holos are, they're dime a dozen in everyone's binder. I got like 69 of them in my binder right above me here. Do I have a PSA 10 in there? Oh, hell no. And so, like, do you have a PSA 10? No, you don't. I know you don't. I don't even have to see your collection. No, you don't. Every single person in this chat, none of you have a PSA 10 Chansey. And I don't have to, and that's not because it's a rare card, but that condition rarity is rare, makes it a rare card. So, like, there are different levels of rarity. Then you have cards like the number one trainer card, or like the real trophy cards that were put out, that where they put the actual trainers on the cards when they won them, and like there's one of one, but it doesn't say one of one, it's just, you know, it's one card. Or then there's like the English version of the tropical mega battles, where every competitor at that tournament got its own deck, and only a certain amount of them were in English because they're on their own language, and it's like, that's rare, but like, who cares? Like, I mean, there's a few people that care, but I guess the question is, what is really rarity at that point? So, you know, there are different levels.
So what about Crown Zenith then? Is that the obvious play?
I personally love Crown Zenith, and if I had to choose between putting $10,000 in Crown Zenith and $10,000 at the Charizard UPCs at the price they're at now, both being equal, like literally just looking at the market snapshot right now, I would have a very difficult decision saying what I would rather do, because I believe both of those items are great items. And I think that they're both being pushed down by irrational negativity, because I saw both of those items just getting pumped to the moon and everyone loving them when they first came out. So
I didn't love them, but
well, you didn't love Crown Zenith?
I didn't love the Charizard UPCs.
Oh, you didn't love the 16 packs, the beautiful promos, the awesome.
You know, I actually made a video about it. I thought it was just it didn't make sense. It felt to me a lot like the Sword and Shield, like the base when they came out with the Zamazenta and Zacian, like premium elite trainer boxes or whatever. It was like, okay, we're just gonna throw a bunch of random packs from the era in here. We're going to throw some random Charizards in there, even though we already have Charizard Vs and V Maxes. And we're just going to throw all this in and wrap it with a Charizard picture, and we're going to sell it for a premium. It didn't make sense. It wasn't the right time for it. I don't know. I'm not a huge fan of it, man. I got to say it.
This is one you and I are going to disagree heavily on, I think, if that's how you actually feel about it, because I look at that product, and like, I look at the Celebrations one and I see the metal cards, and it's just like, it's like a proxy of those metal cards that you see on the secondary market. And I just think like
we are going to disagree.
Yeah. No, I legitimately disagree about this, because like I see those Celebrations metal cards as just being like reprints of the same art. Like the Sleepy Charizard, like those artworks of the alternate art Charizards are the only art of that card. They're alternate arts. You need them for your collection. They're incredibly hard to grade as well. They're very hard to grade. I know that everyone talks about the easy play of like grading, but like, you won't get a 10. If you get a 10, you're very lucky. And so,
no,
like,
I actually think if you want they almost make sense to buy as 10s, as like crazy as that sounds. Everyone's like, oh, you never buy plastic, always grade. It's like, man, you can get those 10s for pretty dang cheap for how hard they are to get.
Dude, they're like $75 as a 10 in those Charizards. I've graded probably 30. And I think I've gotten 3 or 4 10s. That's like that's such a small percent 10 rate. And I only sent the ones that I thought had a chance too. Like, they grade really hard. And so like, yeah, I personally, I think the Charizard UPCs and the new ones are so much better than the Celebration ones. Plus it has Evolving Skies. It has Brilliant Stars, Fusion Strike. The pack selection that's in most of the UPCs is so strong. Whereas the pack selection in the celebrations is like all the cards in celebrations, they grade super easy. Like celebrations is an easy 10. They're a dime a dozen. There are a million of them, and so easy to pull.
See
There's
that?
no real scarcity or rarity in celebrations, whereas in all the Charizard UPCs, the Sword and Shield sets actually have, I don't know. If this has turned into a celebrations versus Charizard UPC, and if you're asking me what I would rather have, 5 Charizard UPCs or 1 celebrations UPC, that's not even a question.
Well,
brother.
yeah, I mean, saying that now, I'm saying, but like, I mean, just the product as a whole. I mean, you know, buying a celebration GPC, you know, for retail compared to a Charizard, I still think it's a. I just like how it has a more of a set identity. It's kind of like, that's why I like Crown Zenith, like all the products they're releasing, like the tins and they're coming with all Crown Zenith packs. Like, I don't like the, you know, oh, you get one of all these different random packs. It's just like, there's no rhyme or reason for it. Just throw a bunch of stuff in there and slap Charizard on there and it'll go to the moon. You know,
the end of the era, and it had a lot of the end of the Sword and Shield era. And then to your point, the Zamazenta and the earlier Sword and Shield ones, it had the earlier era packs in it. So
yeah, but it didn't make sense.
I agree that the Zamazenta ones didn't make sense, and especially because they split them up. They did the together, and then they did the 2 different, you know, the ultra premium elite trainer boxes that were a little bigger and didn't fit in the. Those things are so annoying. I had to sell those, and those were a dud right out the gate. So
I think it would have been cooler if they'd have waited a little longer and released it like at the end with like around Crown Zenith and had like one of every Sword and Shield pack in there. With like that would have been even a little cooler.
It would have been nice. Like I think because there's only 12 sets, that would have been really cool and thoughtful of them. And then maybe like the most recent set, they put extra packs in to fill in the rest of the 16. Yeah, that would be thematically, it would make sense. But that's not how they pack those boxes. And also that, you know what I mean? I think that it had theme. It had it was an alternate art Charizard ultra premium collection with 3, not 1. It had 3 in it. And it was right in the hype when everyone just loved the alternate arts and everyone was all about the Celebrations Ultra Premium collection. And it would still, people would love the Charizard one if it was $300 a box. The fact that it's $75 a box is the only reason people don't like it now. It's not because it's a bad product. That's I will go to the grave. Literally, I will die on this hill. Well,
hey, I am on record. I at least am on record saying I didn't like it from the beginning. So I'm not a bandwagon hater, I promise.
Yeah, and I don't know. I personally, I think that that's a hill I'll die on, and I think there's a lot of people that will die on that hill, so we'll all be dying together on that hill if that's the case, because we're all just sitting on our Charizard UPC cases saying, this is undervalued. I don't know. I don't care what anyone says. But
I did finally. I didn't have any. I did finally buy some with the latest, like when the prices got really low like in the 80s and then under 80 for a little bit. I did end up finally buying some. So I'm in it with you. We're all in it together.
Yeah, and it's one of those things that, like, if you don't have any of it, don't think that me saying this is you should go out and run some right and buy some, because I don't think that product has like a trajectory that is like, I own 0 of them right now. I had 2 cases of them. You know what I did? I broke them down for packs and the promos, and I sold them at Collecticon. And like, it's just.
And you graded the promos?
Yeah, I graded the ones that I thought could 10, and I sold the others raw, and I sold the packs at Collecticon in my pack dispenser, and it's plus EV when you do that. It's better, you know. And so like, I personally believe in the product, but I don't own any of it because I literally can't think, like, I don't know when the right time to tie up my money is, because nobody can really tell you that. Only you can tell you that. And it's hard to say, like, when do I want to throw X amount of money at this thing and just wait, you know?
Well, hey, I'm having fun with the disagreement, so I figured we do some more. Here we go. Which era of cards do you currently see the most upside for in the future?
Oh man.
You want me to go first?
You should take this one first, because I actually have a take that's probably not hot at all. It's like
mine is 100% not hot, and I mean, I've said it probably multiple times now, so anyone who watches my channel knows what I'm going to say. But maybe it's because of when I got back in the hobby. I don't know, but I'm sticking with XY. I just think the pop reports are so low on these cards, so much lower than people realize. I've taken the time, and a lot of these hits, I've searched through every single listing. I mean, every listing of each card on eBay. I've looked at every single picture, and there is, I mean, a lot of the cards, I couldn't find one card that looks grade worthy. And then I go on TCG Player, and there's like sub 10 in near mint condition even available. And you know how TCG players with older cards, they're very hard to ever find an actual like 9 or 10 copy. And so I just think there's, especially with the boxes now, all in the mid hundreds, a lot of them are over 1,000. You know, Phantom Forces 2,000, Flash Fire in the 3,000s. I don't think a lot of them are getting opened. I don't think a lot more of the cards are coming to the market because with the whole grading boom, with the popularity, they would have already been, I think most of them would have already been graded. Those pop reports would have already been flushed out. So in my mind, I think there's a ton of upside for a lot of those XY hits. That's where I'm at.
The argument for the XY hits that you have is very similar to an argument that I hear for both Black and White and Diamond and Pearl era. And I would just argue that both of those eras have some stinkers for low population, like first appearance, like things that are compared to X. So to say XY is underrated right now, when we were talking about this beforehand, like the Alakazam, the gold Alakazam from Fates Collide is rocking $500+ I don't think you could probably get $500 for many mid-era hollow PSA 10s from the Diamond and Pearl era or the Black and White era, and those are both older with maybe.
Well, hold on before you keep going. The other reason for XY is that was like the first boom. It was Pokemon Go, and then it was Evolutions, and so I think there's not as much of a following for like Sun and Moon, Sword and Shield because that was when the major like Logan Paul boom happened. But another huge boom was Pokemon Go and Evolutions. And so I think there's enough people that are going to want to go back and get those XY cards that they came into the hobby around that they didn't get then. Whereas like Black and White, Diamond and Pearl, I don't know if it has the legs because I don't know if it's going to have enough people want to go back to it. It's going to have some, but I just don't know if it has as many as like XY is going to.
I may be biased because I wasn't in the hobby in 2016, not in the card hobby. Like I was in Pokemon Go big time, but I do not remember the boom of 2016 that a lot of people in the hobby talk about who were here for that. So you will be more well-versed on that than I will. So I can't exactly speak as much on that boom, but I just don't look at it the same as the 2020 boom. So like maybe it's because I wasn't around for that. Yeah,
it was not. It's nowhere close. Like here, put it this way: my base set box. Like I bought into my base set box when it was $2,000. That was like in 2016 or something. When I got in the hobby, they were going for 800. So that's kind of the boom, like a 100%, 150%, rise. Well, the boom you got in, the boxes went from $2,000 to like $30,000. So
yes,
it's nowhere near, it's nowhere near the kind of boom where you got in, but there was definitely a large amount of people that came back in the hobby.
So that would lead me to maybe speculate that because the boom wasn't quite as ubiquitous or as large reaching as the current boom was, that XY maybe wouldn't have as much of a base to stand on for like nostalgia purposes as maybe Sword and Shield era would for the people.
Oh, absolutely not. Yeah. Sword and Shield would be bigger.
Like, I think that there may be, like you're saying, some people who did get into it in 2016 who will look at that era and be like, man, this is when I got back in. This is really hard to grade. The cards are really cool. They're full art. There are probably 10 cards in the entire X and Y era that I do think are really cool. Like really, really cool. Like, and I could probably count less than 10 actually. And some of them are those gold cards. And like, the same could be said with Black and White. There's probably less than 10 cards in Black and White era that I think are cool. So like, I do think that there are some things that may hold XY era back, that hold the Black and White era, that hold the Diamond and Pearl era back. And that is the fact that they are hard to grade and that they aren't necessarily as big with a lot of people. I personally view XY and Black and White as the worst time in the entire hobby. I personally think that they're some of the least exciting sets to open. And the hits that are in them, I don't want to open the boxes because I know they're going to be in terrible condition. So like would I be willing to pay for a 10, a premium, because I already know they're in bad condition somewhere longer down the road? Maybe. I'm not at that place now, but me knowing how bad condition that the cards are right out of the pack in XY makes me A, not want to invest in it sealed, because I don't feel like I would ever want to open it sealed, because what's the point? And B, it just makes me think that there's like, because there's so little of it, it doesn't have the legs to grow like a more popular card might. So I don't know. I might possibly think that XY.
The good part about XY is most of the hits are all Gen 1 Pokemon, which helps.
That does. And there are elements about XY that I like. The fact that it is hard to grade, I could be wrong. And I think that could be a plus for it, because it makes it lower population, more desirable. So you want to open that box just on the square chance that you get a good condition one, because you don't know till you open it. It can go both ways.
Well, let's hear what's your pick.
Okay, so my answer is probably the coldest answer that nobody is gonna like, including you, and I think that everyone should jump on me for this. But the cards that I'm not selling right now, that I'm straight up not selling, PSA 9 WotC cards. When people come to me at conventions and they want to trade or they want to sell me cards, and when we're comping out PSA 9 hollow WotC cards, it breaks my heart having to say 65, 70% on these already low numbers to these people, to where most of the time it ends up with me saying, look, man, I can't give you what I think this is actually worth for this particular card, so I can't take it from you, or I will take it from you, but you're not going to like the number that I have to buy it from in order to be able to flip it and then make. So
does it matter? Does it matter first edition or unlimited?
I'm always been an unlimited guy, but I don't think it does matter whether you like unlimited or first edition. I just think in general, the PSA 9s and 8s from that era, especially if it's a strong 8, air quote, strong 8.
So you even go back to the 8s, huh?
Dude, I don't have the heart to sell a $30 PSA 9 Hitmonchan. I can't do that. Like, I won't do that because, like, dude, that's my childhood and it's $30. I'm like barely over the cost of grading it for a mint base set card. So I personally, I don't want to say they're undervalued, and I don't think that answers the question exactly, because I don't see a lot of upside for WotC, because it's just not exciting anymore. It's like, it's the old guard. It's what everyone like kind of got into right when they got back in the hobby, and then they're over it now. But
there's been some movement. Have you paid attention? There's been some movement.
I hope so, because in the last few months, like at the last 2 Collecticons, when I'm comping cards with these people and like buying from them, I feel terrible when it comes to the WotC hollows. So, you know,
if you check some of like the hits in each, like at least, I mean, I was looking base through Gym Challenge, but yeah, I mean, there's definitely been some movement in the 9s.
That's good, because they were in a dark place. Like when I saw $30 to $50 for PSA 9 hollows going in auctions, and some even buy it nows and things, it's just like, I couldn't bring myself to sell that kind of stuff. Like when the Alakazam from XY is going for $600, you know what I mean? The one we were just talking about, the gold one, I can't bring myself to sell a PSA 9 WotC card for $30, you know? I just can't
so you can't bring yourself to sell it. Are you bringing yourself to buy more?
No, but that's it. I also can't buy them either. And that's the thing. That's why I said I don't think I'm exactly answering the question, because while I can't, like, I think they're dark and I think they're undervalued and I can't bring myself to do that, I also can't bring myself put my money where my mouth is and actually sit on a bunch of PSA 9 WotC cards, because I would feel equally like I was in a dark place if I looked back and on my shelf was just a bunch of PSA 9 WotC cards. I would feel really dark about that. No offense to anyone who has that, because
well, we're gonna find out, because I mean, these are some stacks. I've been putting my money where my mouth is on the XY.
You've been doing that, so you agree with me on that. That's hilarious. Oh well, hey man, we didn't talk about this beforehand, by the way.
Oh no, sorry. No, that was the XY.
Oh, okay. I thought you said those are. My bad. I thought that was a base set. I was like,
oh. Now I showed it once on screen, so I did complete. Well, I say complete. I don't have the Charizard, but I did complete a PSA 9 first edition base set in 9s.
Okay,
So,
and
so I do have that.
Like PC, that's what you would call your personal collection.
Yeah, PC, and I mean, they just got so low where I started thinking, you know what? I don't know if they're gonna be this low again. Like, do I now? If everyone, I got a lot of crap from Jake about it when I was on a stream, but it's like, now if someone came to me and said, Alex, what do you think the best way is to, like, to double my money or make the most money in this amount of time? I'm still gonna say sealed product if you're looking to invest, and flipping, grading and flipping singles if you're looking to, like, run a business. But if you're looking to have something in your collection or have something, I can't tell you that this may be the bottoming. I mean, a year, 2 years from now, these could be up 10, 20%. I don't know. And so that's why I moved into them. But no, I've been buying pretty heavily into a lot of these XY modern promos. I've just been, I've been noticing some things, so I'm definitely making some plays right now. What do you got? Black and white?
Yeah, I like mid-era right now. I actually have been opening vintage a little bit.
Who is that next? Is that Next Destinies?
This is Legendary Treasures, and I don't recommend
Legendary Treasures.
Any vintage because I oftentimes get wrecked. But I have found that a lot of the eras that I said I really don't like have some, like, very affordable packs that, like, you can kind of rip for fun and have that vintage type experience. And even though I don't like that era that much, Legendary Treasures is a really good set. And, like, there are hidden gems in every era that you can enjoy. And that's what Pokemon's about, is finding those little hidden gems,
Yeah, it's got the Radiant collection.
Yeah, I love that set. And so, like, as far as, like, PSA 9 WotC is concerned, like, I probably would be in your position where I bought a set of 9s if I really wanted to as well. But I still have my base set binder from when I was a kid. And so, like, to me, my binder that is just all raw and all beat up is, like, just as good as a PSA 9 set that I would just go buy. And, so that's why I haven't quite done that. But I think they're...
Yeah, I unfortunately graded my binders during the hype and sold the card. Opinion on Pokemon Center ETBs as an investment. I don't know. I'm not I'm not the biggest fan of them. They seem to be outpacing, some outpace the, I think they're definitely great for a collection. As far as, like, stocking up on tons of them and making, like, a huge position in them, I don't know.
About 2 years ago, in the hype, when Vivid Voltage ETBs were like $180 a pop, I made a video on my YouTube. It's still there, and it's called "Don't Be Caught Holding These Modern Bags." And the #1 bag on that list were Elite Trainer boxes. And at that time, that was before the PC, the Pokemon Center Elite Trainer boxes came out. That was just the regular ones. Everyone was saying the Elite Trainer boxes were the bee's knees. Twice Big Jake's channel, literally all the modern channels, like, ETBs don't get reprints. ETBs are the best. ETBs are the best display. Blah, 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 blah. You know what happened? Vivid Voltage got crushed with ETB reprints. And it did not hold $180 in ETB. But Old Card Shop, it has Pikachu on it. Oh my gosh! The fundamentals! Get out of here, because that is not the case. And so I made a video called "Don't Be Caught Holding These Modern Bags." And I coined, not only did the Spiceys are going to claim that they coined the term, which they did coin it probably off of YouTube. But on YouTube, the Old Card Shop made the first video calling ETBs bags. And that's where it all started, with the whole ETB thing. And I just want to go on record that anyone who doubted it, just go back and watch that video, because it's definitely still there. And ETBs, I do not recommend it. I've been
a flip-flopper. I mean, hey, one of the things in this hobby, like, you have to be able to, pivot when you see things changing. It's not that, like, you're, like, going back on your word. It's just that, during XY and Sun and Moon, ETBs were a good play. Even, like, early Sword and Shield. And then, like, ETBs became the booster box reprints. Like, they became the main reprint. They got just sent out to every store, like always available. And so like during the beginning of Sword and Shield, I was ETBs. I was buying Evolving Skies ETBs over the booster boxes. Like I made a video showing how ETBs were a better return on your money than booster boxes. But no, I mean, nowadays it's definitely booster box. Booster boxes are the thing now. ETBs are not it. The Pokemon Center ETBs, you know, they have a little better fundamentals because they're more, you know, everyone gets in on the same price and whatever, you know, they got the exclusive promos, extra packs, whatever it may be. I'm not saying you're going to do bad on them. It's just like, if you're saying, you know, they cost X amount, where can I put it there or somewhere else? A lot of the time there's a better somewhere else. That's what I got.
What are they, $50? They're what, 40 or $50? They're $50 now, like with the new price increase, or 55 even.
I think they're more. They're more than 50 now, yeah.
Yeah, because they're 55 probably. I don't know. I don't buy those because I think they're terrible investments. I'll go out and say it. I think ETBs in general are terrible investments as far as like place to store money in Pokemon. Obviously, you can do whatever you want, and I will not tell you one way or the other what to do. But
they're a great collection piece.
Yeah, they look cool, but they're big and bulky, and they toss the packs around a little bit, and they usually have bad hits, which I'm not one for superstitions, but if you ever do plan on opening it, a lot of people don't like opening ETBs because they just think they're not as good. So, I don't know. It's one of those things that, like, I've held firm on my belief on this for a long time. I will say that the Elite Trainer boxes from Paldea Evolved is probably the only product from that set that I actually wish that I could only buy, but I have to buy all of it. But I wish the only thing I had to take was ETBs from that set, and all the rest I could just like sell off, or I can sell it off, but like I could just push it off to someone else and make a little money on it, which is what I'm probably going to do. Because I don't think Paldea Evolved looks like a strong set, but I really like the ETB promo that's coming exclusively in the ETBs. And I think that the new era of ETBs with the exclusive promos in them are a much more attractive investment piece than the old era of ETBs, which didn't have anything about them that I thought was attractive. Because now, if you want those promos, you have to buy the ETB, which I kind of like. So,
well, here's a question though.
I think the ETBs are better now than they ever were before, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. Here's the question: what do you consider rare?
Do you know the Tops? Do you know the Tops hologram cards, the Ghost Rare hologram cards? I consider those to be very rare because I never see them and I deal in Tops. I consider stuff that's like weird like that rare, and I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I had to like say, I guess we have to talk about the trophies and the, you know, all the World promos and the Japanese exclusive stuff, and I mean all that stuff is like technically rare, right? Pikachu Illustrator, like those are technically the rarest cards. But like when you talk about condition rarity, I mean, we're talking about like grading. I would say anything sub 100 pop is a rare PSA 10. It's a rare condition.
You would feel comfortable with it being low pop on the listing title if it was under 100.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair. I think if you're looking for like a, you know, a hard to find gray or hard to find 10, I mean, I think anything under 100 is going to be pretty scarce, pretty rare to find. I mean, all the set cards aren't going to be inherently rare, but finding one in a PSA 10 could be rare.
Yeah, and it goes back to like, what do you consider rare? Like you said, there's either condition rarity or there's like rarity, where there's literally only 2 of these made, like that sports card, the logo man, the LeBron logo man, where there has like the, I don't know, there's only one of them, and the sports people are going crazy about it. There's literally only one. So that's rare, but it's created.
That's so funny. Hey, Leaf, he actually said it later on. Rare to me is 100 pop PSA.
See, hey, you're right on. You're right there with them. So that's
See, everyone's kind of on the same mindset.
Yeah, and honestly, when you're talking about Umbreon having like 6,000 PSA 10s, 100 is pretty low, you know, comparatively.
Oh yeah, hey, I do want to hit on that before we ended. What do you think about like pop reports like going forward? So obviously things have changed. I mean, I know you've been in a little, not quite as long as I have, but I mean, before seeing pop reports in the multiple thousands, that was like a no-go. You stay away. There's absolutely no chance. I think we're all going to have to sort of recondition ourselves with this new era and the amount of people that are in Pokemon and how large this hobby and how worldwide it is. Like 1,000, 1,200, 1,500 pop may not be as much as it used to be. It may not be that like, oh, don't touch it. It's not going to go up. You can't speculate on those because I don't know. When you see these cards that have 10 and 15,000, pops, and like Umbreon is 6,000 pops, and they're still selling regularly in the hundreds, if not in the thousands, it kind of gives you a pretty good idea that, hey, maybe there's enough demand there to, support a 1,000, 1,500 pop card now. So what do you think? I mean, are you still like, I mean, obviously you're not really, buying anything to speculate long-term, but I mean, what's just your overall feeling on the pop reports rising? Do you think it's like a deal breaker, or do you think that we're just like giant bubble and people are just being irrational, or do you think that there's just so much demand and so many people want these cards now that maybe if it does go up into over 1,000, it's not the end of the world anymore?
I personally have a different belief about like reprints and high pops than what the traditional thought process is. And I have a feeling you and I will see similarly to this because I think you're a real, you understand the importance of demand. To me, when, excuse me, when I see a set that has so much demand that the prices have skyrocketed for booster box, that it's gotten 1, 2, 3 reprints, and it might get a 4th reprint, and like people are worried about a reprint on like a set that's so in demand that it can't stay in stock. I would have the opposite like worry about a set like that. I wouldn't worry about a reprint. I would worry if there isn't a reprint, because with a set that's so popular where demand is so high, I'm talking about Evolving Skies right now specifically, but you can apply this to anything where the demand is so high, it doesn't really like, it doesn't matter, right? So like the more there is in the pop, the better, because that means there's more available for people. And if it's still being eaten up and there's not enough, then that says that there could be more to be eaten up. So I personally, when a set gets reprinted for the 4th time, I get excited. And if that means it's going to drive the price down momentarily, that's fine, because I understand that the reason it got the reprint was because of the demand that was there. So to the point of like the population counts, it's the same way. Like there wouldn't be 6,000 Moonbreons in the PSA 10 pop report if there probably weren't 6,000 people on the planet who wanted one, or were speculating in one or whatever. There wasn't people who the demand for that wasn't there. So I think that it's more of an encouraging factor when I see cards with that much pop, because to me it just means that one person isn't going to ruin that player. One bad day isn't going to change that. It just means that it's going to be a more of a steady thing that is going to be hard. It's like when you throw a pebble in a bucket, you see the ripples, right? And it makes a big splash. But when you throw a pebble into like the ocean or into like a pond or a lake, you hardly notice that shit. It's because and so like you might think when you throw a pebble into the bucket, oh, I don't want to splash around and make a mess or whatever. You're not thinking shit when you're throwing pebbles in the pond. You're just skipping rocks. You're throwing them, a bunch of them. Like you're just having a grand old time. So like, it's like the Celebrations Charizard, right? It's like, no matter how many of those damn things that you put onto the market, you personally probably can't affect the market on a card that's that deep and that like well known, right? You can't affect it. Even if you tried, you could buy 200 copies and it still wouldn't do much. So that is a place of confidence I would see is those high pops, not a place of like uncertainty, like, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It really does. I mean, it's just the fear though is that like, if times do start, going down, people are wanting to, it can affect the market if people keep undercutting each other.
That's a race to the bottom. Yeah.
And yeah, it'll become a race to the bottom.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people in the chat probably weren't here and I wasn't here for it, but I've heard the anecdotal stories about Red's Pikachu. Red's Pikachu was a promo in 2016 that came out from the Pokemon Center in Japan. It had Ash and Pikachu, or Red and Pikachu. I'm sorry, not Ash. It was an exclusive Japanese artwork. It's just like, special delivery Pikachu or Charizard here, but it was over there in Japan, or like the Unagaba. You bought a certain amount, you got the card. People speculated hard on that card, and that card out the gate was, I heard, very expensive, and then it crashed really hard, like really bad. It crashed, and for years and years, Red's Pikachu was just like a meme, and it was like literally nothing. It's still, I think, a pretty cheap card comparatively to other cards and things like, but it's all things can change. Things kind of go through their motions, and you never really know the future. That's why I hesitate to say things are obvious, because like Red's Pikachu might have been obvious at the time, and sure, if you have it now, if you bought it at $5, which is like what it was at a certain point, really low, you probably are doing okay on it after you waited 7 years and you graded it, and now you're making $75. Good job. But it's not that big of a win, and there are definitely things that are better or worse.
That's definitely going to turn into a meme on this channel. Obvious. Like, there's always going to be the obvious play that everyone's missing.
Hey, you gotta have some memes. Memes are the best thing. Like I sell PSA 1s, which is basically a meme and a card. So I'm a fan of memes. So there we are.
You also collect PSA 1s yourself?
Yeah, so that's how it got started. A lot of my selling, a lot of the things that I sell, I started out collecting myself, because what really turned me on to Pokemon was when I started really just trusting my own instincts and intuition a little bit more, and buying the things that I liked, and trusting that other people would most likely like them as well, because really I'm not that special. Like, I may think that my ideas are special. I might think I'm a super smart guy or whatever, funny, whatever it is. I'm not that smart. I'm not that funny. I'm not that special. I'm just like everyone else. That's the unfortunate truth, that we are all just like each other. That I feel like that's the unfortunate truth that I learned. And so when I started realizing that we're all more alike than we are different, I started trusting what I liked more, because what I liked was probably something that other people would like. And I stopped relying as much on like hearing that validation from other people, I guess. And it really had helped me, and it has helped me in a lot of what I do, because I just don't care. Like, if someone says something's a good idea, if I don't, I'll tell you why I don't. And it's fine. I'm okay. I'm confident in like why I believe certain things. And I'm, so.
That could be dangerous too, though. Let's be honest. That could be a little dangerous.
$15 amazing rare Celebes. I was pretty damn confident about that too, brother. So it can be very dangerous. Yes.
The only reason I say that is because, like, I know I've made a video on my channel before saying that, because people will always say that kind of coined phrase of invest in what you like, and it's like, that doesn't always work, because you could like, some people out there could like some really weird stuff that no one else does, and that could get you in really big trouble whenever you go to sell in the future. And so, take a, to an extent.
Absolutely, yeah. I personally would take most of what I say at a grain of salt, because that's just me. But
Oh man, you got anything you want to cover before we call it?
I feel like we went through a lot today, so I feel pretty good about the live. If chat has any last minute, things they want to throw up there, feel free. But I mean, we talked about pretty much everything, I feel like.
Yeah, I'll go ahead and give the shout out that everyone's gonna hate. If anyone wants to be involved in the box break, June 11th, it's got Unbroken Bonds, Unified Minds packs, Paldea Evolved. You want to get the brand new stuff? Nostalgianomics.com. You can sign up right on there, and we're going to open it live. Cracked from booster boxes, not ETBs, not loose packs, not blister packs. Doing the real box.
Yeah, that's kind of cool. I think that doing like an old-fashioned box break of that era isn't something that you're seeing a lot, because like everyone does like vintage box breaks, and everyone does like modern, like whatever the newest set is. But it's cool that you're doing Sun and Moon, because that's the thing everyone's talking about. So I personally think it'll be a good time. I'm going to try to tune in to at least be there and support, to say what's up. Like, even though you know, I'm not much of a participator myself in that way. I'll at least be in the chat, giving some good vibes.
I should almost have you on the stream to coach me through it. Being the veteran
You'll do
you
great,
are.
man. You'll do fine. Box breaking is honestly not hard to do. The biggest thing is, like, I would say, is try not to do too much, because since it'll be your first time, you know, that's just the more that you add on, the more extra cameras and bells and whistles, that's just the more that can go wrong. So I would keep it simple, you know. That would be my only thought, but I think you're gonna knock it out of the park. And I think that your community will enjoy it too. Like, even if the people aren't able to actually participate, how often do you get to see like a Unbroken Bonds box get broken? You know, it's just kind of a fun thing that might be cool for once in a while. So I think your community they might like it more than I think they will.
Yeah, and then everyone, Josh's links are in the chat. Make sure you sub to his channel. I got his channel and his Instagram right up top in the description. And then, hey man, send me your eBay link afterwards. I'll throw that in there too for everyone to have.
Yeah, so I'm going to send it to Alex, but for those of you who do want to find my eBay, before he's able to put it up there, it's selling bags. It's just, you know, just how it's selling bags. That's my eBay with my logo, the old Card Shop logo. It may look like it's an alternate account because it doesn't have, it's got my logo and it has a different name, but it's my real account. It's just tongue-in-cheek kind of, like I said, I think I'm funny sometimes, so maybe I am, maybe I'm not.
David wants to know, where's a good place to sell a full collection?
You know, you can literally reach out to a lot of people. You can reach out to myself. You can reach out to many other content creators who do buy collections on Facebook. Verbank, the big public Facebook. I think it's called Verbank. Maybe it's not called Verbank anymore. They always change their name and rebrand. There are many great selling platforms other than like TCG Player or eBay. I have a binder collection that I'm literally auctioning on eBay. So like, if you just don't want to do any work and send it to anyone, you just want to get market value, you can always auction your things on eBay and just sell the whole binder. Like, I do that with things I don't want to deal with. So like, there are lots of ways you can sell your collection. I guess it just depends on what type of collection you have. Most people, though, will go to like a collecticon, and they'll go to a local show, and they'll bring kind of their stuff that they want to trade or sell with them. And then you can just kind of walk around and shop it around. You can get the best price. I guess the main thing I would say is try to get the best price you can. So shop it around a little bit. Don't just go to the first person and take the first offer that you get, because it's no shame in trying to maximize your potential profit off of your collection. You know, and if you want to say no to someone who offers you, say no. It's not a big deal. So I would say shop.
Actually, Leaf Green Goblin, he wants it. You want it? I'll put my hat in the ring. Let's do a live auction for it right now. Tell us what you got. Tell us what you got. Tell us what condition. Just say, like, you know, play to near mint.
Yeah, and then we'll take your word for it. And then when we get it, we'll open a return request when there's one little white dot on one of the cards that you said was near mint. It's like, you said near mint. This is light played, sir. I want all of my money back, and I want to keep the cards. So
no, don't you love it though when people say it's played to near mint on the listing? Like, yeah, somewhere between played and near mint.
NM can mean lots of different things. It could be not mint. It could be near mint, non-mint. It could mean whatever the seller. It should have one meaning. It should mean near mint. But I've found that buying on all kinds of different platforms, sometimes NM stands for different things on different platforms. So, and different.
Are you being serious?
Well, no, it doesn't really mean different things, but you would think it does from how the condition variants that you get sometimes. So,
I mean, I've been told wrong by other people, but in my experience, TCG Player near mint, that means PSA 7, PSA 8.
It depends on the cards, but it can be that way for sure. I buy some cards off of TCG Player that I can then turn around and grade as 10s. So it is possible.
Really?
Absolutely, yeah. It's not like it depends on the
I'm just unlucky, I think.
It depends on a lot of things. Yeah, it depends on the card, the seller, what area you're buying from, the expectation. All these things, you know, play a part. But I will say I don't buy everything on TCG Player for the exact reason that you're saying.
What are your thoughts on AGS or other grading services like that?
I have taken so long to start singing the praises of just one grading company, PSA, that it's going to be hard for me to put my name behind any other grading company, just because like I strictly grade with PSA. I do grade with CGC. I grade errors and cards that PSA won't touch, like things that are like square cuts, factory miscuts, things that PSA just doesn't want. I'll grade those with CGC, but honestly, I wish I could grade them with PSA. So I personally am not one to recommend other grading companies, and that's not a knock on grading companies. If you like the slabs, if you like the robo grading thing, that's great. It's just for me as like a flipper, PSA holds the best and most liquid value for me to grade with them in both turnaround times and sales and literally all of it. And the grading, they grade a little softer than other grading companies. So like I have lots of reasons for why I prefer them, but it took me a long time to get there. So like I don't know. If grading's your thing, that's great, but I use it as a way to make money. So
we've been on this 3 hours and 18 minutes. There's still 95 people. For anyone watching this after the fact and watching this whole thing, it's amazing. But I will say one thing about all this. So whether it be this grading deal, like anything with a market, don't fight the flow of the market. Like people are constantly trying to fight the flow, and they're trying to, find all these new grading services and convince other people why it's better. Like, oh, this is robo grading, and it takes the human element out, or this one's this one's that. Guys, the market wants PSA. Now, if you think you got an absolute perfect card, you want to go to Beckett or CGC and get that pristine 10 or that black label, great. You can get a premium. But for 8s, for 9s, you're going to do better going with PSA, and there's no reason to continue to try to fight that. Just go with it. Like, go where there's not any type of, turbulence, and just take the more guaranteed, play. And I feel like it happens in all markets. Everyone always wants to go against it. Like they always want to, try to find the next best thing. And it's just take the path of least resistance. That's what I would say. Now, I get it. If you want to try to hit home runs, if you're going for grand slams, you can be that person that's ahead of the game. But for every person that's ahead of the game and hits the grand slam, there's 1,000 people that strike out. So.
And that's why I recommend PSA to people when they start grading, is because, like you said, it's like their customer service is easy. It's a good entry point. It's the most liquid. They grade the easiest. It's a path of least resistance. So yeah, I think that, do I grade with BGS sometimes? Yeah. Like you said, for cards that I think are absolutely perfect. Like, listen, here's the thing about me. Like, if I think that I can get more money out of my card by grading it with another company, I don't play favorites. I will grade it with another company if I legitimately believe I can get more money out of it. Like, I don't mind. It's fine. It's just the reason I don't is because I get the most money from PSA. So that's all. It's strictly that. It's not a bias towards one or the other or against one. What
do you think PSA would have to do to make their slabs worthless?
Man, dollar slabs is something we talk about a lot in like our Discords and things that I'm in, just various Pokemon groups. And like, do people think we'll ever get to the point where there are dollar slabs? And like, sports has dollar slabs, dude. So it's like a thing in other hobbies, and you would be surprised, I think, at like where I think it could go. We're not there yet, because like there are people online who literally have set a floor for slabs, whether they're whatnot streamers who are buying for their streams or whatever it is, but there are floors set for slabs, for junk slabs, and you can sell almost any slab for like $5 plus shipping for the most part. Like, and yeah, you're losing money at that, but like it's not a dollar slab, that exists in sports. So
yeah, it's amazing. It's honestly amazing that it's I mean, it makes sense, but it's amazing to see finally happen. That just like the junk slab era is creeping closer and closer.
Well, okay, I can think of lots of cards that I wouldn't pay $1 for in a slab. You know what I mean?
ZNG, he always does it, right? He's always just like, who's buying these slabs, and holds up like a PSA 7, unlimited base set, like Sandshrew or something. It's just like, who's buying this? I don't know. I'm with him.
Yeah, and I asked the same thing, and it's just not at the $1 point yet. It's crazy that it's not. I mean, I do think it'll drift down there though, because there are cards that I strictly would not pay $1 for.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like PSA, what would like take PSA to like be worthless? It'll never happen. I mean,
Dude, a PSA 6 Evolutions Charmander. Would you pay $1 for that?
no. I mean, like for like PSA cards, like for it to be worthless.
No, but
yeah, there will be worthless cards, just not across the board.
Would you pay $1 for a PSA 6 Charmander from Evolutions?
No.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So that's what I mean. We're not very far off from dollar slabs in Pokemon, and that's pretty close to worthless.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, if you're good, when people get to those levels of ridiculousness, you know, they saw the Jungle Pikachu and all that stuff go crazy and think, oh, we'll do that with Evolutions. Like, no, no.
I see it all the time, though. I see PSA 4 Poliwhirl from base sets. You know what I mean? Just unlimited base set Poliwhirl, PSA 4. I see a PSA 7 non-holo Jolteon from Jungle Set. You know what I mean?
I'm not going to lie. I think I'd rather come to your side and buy a 1 over a 4.
Hey now. Let's not blow up too many of these.
I'm just saying. I mean, once you get to like 7, 8, 9, yeah, but like 5, 4, 3, like just give me a 1. I might as well get like a, you know, the absolute bottom instead of just random, you know, it's still in terrible condition, but it's a better grade than a 1. Why, you know?
So you're telling me that a PSA 1 is more desirable than a PSA 7 or a PSA 8 of
No, I said than a 4.
Oh, 4. Okay. Because the prices will actually agree with you on that. So
what? Then a 7 or an 8?
Well, here's the thing. If you think about it as a collection, the most collectors are going to collect 9s. That is the most number that people collect because it's available, it's obtainable, and it's generally assumed to be the best thing for collectors to collect. So they're the most 9 collectors. And then you have 10 collectors as well. 10 collectors are going to be right under 9 collectors. They're a little bit uppity, you know, they're maybe a little richer, maybe they have a little bit, you know, pinky out taste, they only like 10s, whatever it is, the reason why they're 10 collectors. There are less of them than 9 collectors.
Absolutely.
But I will tell you that it drops off after that. There are not more PSA 8 collectors than there are PSA 1 collectors. There are not more PSA 7 collectors than there are PSA 1 collectors.
Well, that's why I questioned you on that when we were talking about like the WotC buying like or like, you know, 8s and 7s selling for so little. Like, because I've said already on my channel is that if vintage comes back, if it does have a wave of return, I don't think it's going to be like the rising tide raises all boats like last time. I think 9s and 10s are going to do well. Maybe some of the higher like Pokemon 8s will follow, but I don't think we're going to see like 6, 7s, and 8s and all that follow again. I think it's going to be the 9s and 10s.
But that's what people thought in 2020 as well. There were people like, you know, friends of mine in the hobby who said there's no way that these PSA 7 Poliwrath hollows are going to go for more than the cost of grading. These aren't even $1 in a binder. And you're telling me I can get more than $20 for a Poliwrath and a 7? Get out of here. And they went for like hundreds of dollars instead of $20, you know what I mean, in 2020. Now those cards are what they should be. They're trash because they're binder, dime a dozen, overgraded, you know, shouldn't have been in a slab, whatever you want to say about them. But it's like people already thought that about base set is that the 7s and the 6s and 7s did that. So like, while I agree with you, while they shouldn't do that, is it possible? Well, we've seen it happen and people have had that same sentiment, you know? It's just a different mentality. Nobody likes vintage right now. Honestly, modern has overtaken and just steamrolled the whole vintage. And it's just one of those things that, yeah, it's like, why fight against it?
If only someone could have saw that coming.
Yeah, well, I mean.
Okay, so he clarified. I guess I should elaborate on the question. I mean, what would PSA have to do as a brand to get people to maybe crack them and send them elsewhere? Like, what kind of scandal?
Oh, dude, there's no scandal. PSA already is in such deep, dark scandals. Just go online and look up all kinds of lawsuits that they're in right now. And literally, it doesn't matter. They just bounce back from it. It's crazy. So aside from Dude, I don't know.
No scandals, just price. The same thing we saw during the price and turnaround times. Same thing we saw during the pandemic. If they raise the price too high and the turnaround times get too long, then people will go somewhere else. If they're competitive in the market and turnaround times are pretty realistic compared to what everyone else's are, no one's going to go anywhere else.
I think that, yeah, I would agree with that probably. I mean, without saying much else, I would probably agree with that.
Where you guys just air out their dirty laundry? What's up?
No.
Do you know some inside PSA stories?
They shill bid a lot. They get in trouble for it. They have done, you name it, anything you think an auction or like a grading company. They've had insider grading leaks. They've had altered cards.
Wait. Hold on. What do you mean PSA shill bid?
So they've had their own employees bidding on cards to get comps, to be like, they've had insider grading scandals where employees supposedly altered cards and then gave them 10s and then gave them to a friend to sell. Like, they're in all kinds of weird lawsuits. I don't know which ones they won and which ones they've lost. I don't know which ones are still going, but like,
well, that's the kind of stuff you know goes on. I mean, it just has to. It's kind of like, Pokemon Company, like, Prince gives probably cards to, people that work there. People that work there steal some and give them to their friends. Like, that happens.
I don't think that that's like well known. I don't think that if you're like a bidder at like one of these auction houses that you're like supposed to assume that you're being shill bid.
No, that's not. No. I'm saying I didn't know about that. I'm saying like the thing where like, yeah, their employees like give them better grades than they should, or they'll make their cards better. Yeah.
So like if a scandal like that can't take PSA down, which that is literally undermining the confidence in what they do as a brand, then I don't think anything could take them down. Like you said, even the demand, like they shut down, they closed their doors, they stopped taking it, and they had a massive backlog, and they were still grew their business. So
people have claimed they've switched their cards millions of times.
Yeah, lots of people,
and people have like showed like
one of my cards recently.
They showed before pictures and then after pictures of like clear like stains or marks, and like that was not there. Now it's here. They gave me someone else's card because they probably graded your card a 10, gave it to one of their buddies, sent you back. I mean, this is all just like hearsay, but I mean, it seems like that.
Yeah, it's the scandals are everlasting when it comes to these types of things, and it makes me really uncomfortable dealing in them in certain regards, because like you don't know where the line is drawn, like between real sales and fake sales. And you see it all the time in the hobby. Like for the case of the Gengar Mimikyu, like the Gengar Mimikyu alternate art had like a $600 or $700 sale. Not like a month ago or something. And then just recently, a couple of days ago, there was like a week ago now, there was like a $1,500 sale for it. And it got paid for on like 130 point or whatever it is. And now that's the new price point that these tag teams are supposed to be at that 1,500. So like, what's to say that their friend who had the Mimikyu Gengar didn't just buy that from them and then hand them the card back afterwards and just exchange money and say, cool, now we have a sold listing on eBay that says 1,500. Everyone's going to look it up on 130 point. It actually was sold for. We give eBay the 10%. And then they list their other 5 Mimikyu Gengars that they have on the market for 1,400. And they say, look, you're getting a deal at $100 off here. It's only $600 more than it was yesterday, but it's $100 less than it was today. So, that's
you're a conspiracy theorist. That doesn't happen.
That's right. Yeah. That would never happen in this hobby, right? Because
that's not, you know what? I think I heard Alex Jones talk about that, man. I'm not.
Yeah, I gotta take my tinfoil hat on, because that would never ever happen. Like, so I mean, it's just one of those things that comes with the whole, like, that's why I'm uncomfortable holding cards that are that expensive in a lot of ways. Like, I'm really uncomfortable with that, because like, yes, there are some sales that probably are. And so here's what's gonna happen with that Mimikyu Gengar. Even if that Mimikyu Gengar was one fake sale, that first $1,500, even if it was me and my homie making that happen and shilling it, even after that, that's a real sale in the market's eyes. There will be more sales that follow that weren't shilled. that the market just looks at and says, oh, because of this $1,500 sale, this is gospel now. And so that's how these things continue and become a self-fulfilling prophecy, how like one shill can literally control the market. And so like you just have to be confident in knowing what you feel is things are worth. And a lot of the times it's an equivalency game. You just have to literally take a step back and ask yourself, for $1,500, would I rather have X, Y, or Z? Would I rather have a trip to Disneyland? Would I rather have that Gengar Mimikyu PSA 10? Would I rather have a cruise on Princess Cruise Lines to the Bahamas? Because all those things are roughly somewhat similar in price at that point. So, you know what I mean?
Absolutely. Ian, do you guys think Lorcana will be a top 5 TCG or will it flop hard?
I want to let you take this one first because
I'm gonna say neither. I mean, I don't think it's gonna flop. I think it's gonna do well, but like being a top 5 TCG, I mean, what are we talking about? We're talking about Pokemon, Magic, Yu-Gi-Oh. What would you say is the top 5 right now?
Flesh and Blood and MetaZoo.
Okay, you don't think One Piece is getting there?
It might get there, but currently, I think it may actually be on the heels of MetaZoo, but I think Flesh and Blood's in the top 4 for sure. One Piece has got a lot going for it, though, and I've actually seen some tournaments with a lot of turnout, so I actually want to say that I can't speak to One Piece as much. I would think that it's probably coming up on the heels, though, from what I've seen.
I mean, Lorcana, can it be a top 5 TCG? Could it knock off like MetaZoo?
I don't like Disney very much. Like, you'll hear me talk about Disney a lot because my fiance is a Disney nut, but I personally don't like Disney very much, and I think that they don't know how to run a TCG. And I've seen a lot of TCGs die. Dude, I have a shelf above me full of dead TCGs. I love them. But I love them once they die because they get dirt cheap. So I think Lorcana could potentially be in the future dead games department in the next 5 years. So I don't know.
I guess define like I guess as far as flop hard, I mean, I think it's gonna do well for a little while. Like as far as like stand test of time, like 5-10 years. I don't know if it's going to make a 10-year mark. That's my opinion. But I think it's going to come out strong.
Dude, it's hard to make a successful TCG. It's really hard. It's not easy. Everyone likes to give MetaZoo a hard time, but the fact that there are players and tournaments for MetaZoo and it's stuck around, I gave it a lot of a hard time at first. I think it's somewhat commendable that they actually can have a bit of a player base. So
look at Dragon Ball Super. I mean, Dragon Ball Super's got no. What I'm saying is that's got a freaking strong IP behind it, and they failed with Dragon Ball Z, and now Dragon Ball Super is kind of declining. It's like it's crazy. I mean, Disney, just because they have a strong IP, it doesn't mean it's a successful card game.
And I agree, and that's what I think. It takes more than just a strong IP because I don't think that Pokemon's strong IP is the only reason it's good. You know what I mean?
No.
Yeah, it's not just because they have plushies and video games. There's like the game's not bad. Like I used to play Pokemon, so it's not a bad game. It's simplistic, but it's not bad.
Yeah, I saw people like say they didn't like the open world concept. I mean, I hadn't played a game since like Ruby Sapphire or like I guess Fire Red Leaf Green. So I haven't played a game since Game Boy Advance. I loved it. I mean, I loved Pokemon Violet. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and the Arceus, the Legends game that came out, that one I liked a lot better than I liked watching Scarlet. And I actually played a little bit of Arceus Legends, just like the first 2 areas, but it was a really cool game, and I thought that was a really like innovative way that it went. So, yeah, I mean, it's more than just like the IP for sure. So,
I think I know your answer, but where's a better place to sell singles, eBay or TCG Player?
I like them both. I honestly like them both for different reasons. So like I sell on both platforms. For my cheap sub $1 singles, it's all TCG Player. But for my high-end graded cards, it's eBay. Actually, I take it back. I don't sell any singles on eBay. It's all graded. So eBay for graded, TCG for singles. That's what I do. Probably not the best way to do it, but that's just what works for me.
Yeah, 100% agree. And I mean, anything like when it starts getting more expensive and You can usually get more on eBay if you like, take real upfront, close pictures of the front and back, and people know they're like what they're getting because they probably want to grade it. I mean, if it's really that good condition, I'd grade it yourself. But if you don't want to take time to do that, I think you get more on eBay. Like sub $10, it's just so much easier and faster TCG Player. There's no pictures. There's no making the listings. It's literally just point and click. Find the card, click your inventory, click your price, and it's listed. And so TCG Player is just so much more streamlined. But for like the people who are looking to grade and looking to have that mint card, and it's an expensive card, they're gonna look on eBay more and they're gonna pay a little higher usually. From what I've seen.
Some things there's arbitrage on all platforms. Like you can find some things for cheaper on eBay than you can on TCG Player. But just overall, as a general rule, I sell my raw cards on TCG Player. I grade my gradables, and I sell those on eBay. So that's kind of my mentality behind it.
Man, a lot of people we got Walrus and B Purple Poker blowing us up on Digimon, how we left it out.
I watched a couple episodes of Digimon during the pandemic because I had never watched it growing up, and my fiance loved Digimon when she was younger. So she's like, hey, we got to watch a couple episodes. I couldn't get past the whole theme. Digimon, digital monsters, just cracked me up, dude. Like every time it'd come on, I just would die laughing for some reason, and I wouldn't be able to watch the rest of the episode. So I don't know. I know it's probably a good game because it's been around for a long time, but it's also one of those games that's always been on the heels of Yu-Gi-Oh! And Pokemon, and it's just how many Pokemon clones can we have? You know what I mean? If Yu-Gi-Oh! Is already a Pokemon clone, then what do we, I'm going to get so much hate for saying that about
Oh, you are? That's okay. We'll go ahead and end it. That way they won't have time to say anything to you.
They can leave it in the comment. All the Yu-Gi-Oh! Old Card Shop doesn't know what the hell he's talking about. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is great. Like, give it to me all. I can take it. Like, I've been okay. I just have to say, like, every time that there was a Yu-Gi-Oh! Tournament, we'd have our Magic tournaments, right? And then later on, the Yu-Gi-Oh! Kids would come in and stuff. I just would always feel like I had to take my backpack, take it off the floor, and put it on my lap and sit with my backpack and my binder in front of me instead of behind me. That's all I'm saying. That's all. I've been in enough card shops. I know the vibe. Like, that's all. That's all it is.
Enough said. All right, guys, we're going to end it there. We're going for this had to be the longest live stream I've had, almost 3 hours and 40 minutes. Thanks to everyone for being in the chat.
Card shop for me. We do regular long podcasts over here at the channel, so definitely go. If you like this kind of thing, go check out my podcast. I'll give myself a little shout out there.
Absolutely, yeah, guys. Yeah, check his links at the very top. Make sure you check them out. Subscribe here if you're not subscribed. Be back here in a new video soon. We're out.